On the east side, is what you're saying, and leave the others as is.
The way it is.
Okay.
Seems to me.
Let's go back to anyone that lives on East Main, if I can, or is in the area of East Main that uses it. I'm sorry, this woman in the back had her hand up? Yes.
Town Kimball, 53 East Main Street.
Okay.
I'm related to her. But it makes absolutely no sense to take our sidewalks out in front of our houses, but put the sidewalks in front of the cemetery. Why, I don't understand from what point are you going to take the sidewalks out on Main Street? From the Freestone Avenue all the way up to Spring Street? Or from Waverly up to Spring?
No, if you will, from the town hall, Fairview to Spring. And again, we're not saying that we're doing this, we're just saying that we're talking about that, and that's why everyone is here, to voice your opinion. So if you think that's a bad idea and stupid, then that's why you're here, to voice that, so
So you
everyone can
want
hear
the
you.
sidewalks coming on your side of the street, which is the east side.
And if you can put them in front of the cemetery for the kids that walk to school, but like Sheila said, people don't shovel as it is. These poor kids walk down Fairview Street to go to school, and they're not shoveling from the hill down to the stoplight. These kids are walking in the road.
So you want sidewalks on both sides?
But if only if one,
If you're, who
east side.
wants sidewalks on both sides of East Main? That would help.
If there's a sidewalk there, the sidewalk should stay or be repaired.
Okay, who wants sidewalks on one side of East Main? One. We do, I know. I live in the area, I live on Cobble Hill, I walk East Main all the time. But when, you live on East Main, I know where you live. And it is used a lot. I use it a lot. Not that I always walk on the sidewalk, because they're not too good, right? So that's why we're here tonight. Now, before we get further into that, I had announced that at 7:30, we would be taking a break for some awards, and then we're going to come back to the public hearing. So it's 7:30, and I'm going to recess the public hearing. We're going to come back to it in about 10 or 15 minutes. So I'm calling the Board of Selectmen meeting to order, and the first order of item is to say the Pledge of Allegiance. So you'd all stand, please. In the front of the room, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item I have, and I would ask the selectmen who are in the audience, is there a motion to approve the minutes from October 4th? Pitch, seconded by Kathy. All in favor? Any objections? Motion passes. Motion to accept agenda as presented? Moved by Jim, seconded by Kathy. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so, thank you. The rest of the audience, if you could please come in. If you're receiving an award with your families. Is Nero here? Our police dog? David, do you see the dog?
I'll go find it. I think he was headed here.
Okay. The selectmen could come up, that would be great. Thank you.
Is Mike not going to be here tonight?
Move on down. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. It's great to have an audience. And we are here because there's a lot of good that happens in our town. And tonight we're here to celebrate some of the good things. And I believe we have 4 awards tonight. And in the interest of time and smoothness, we're going to start with Nero. So if you could have Nero, please come in. Hi, Jim. Come on over. Nero is our newest member, four-legged member of the Portland Police Department. And this is Sergeant Jim Kelly, who is the handler. Welcome. And is this microphone on? Everybody can hear okay? Okay. We have a certificate of acknowledgement tonight, and may it be known that this certificate is presented by the Portland Board of Selectmen with honor and recognition awarded to Nero, Police Canine. Under the guidance of his handler, Sergeant James Kelly, Nero has successfully completed 16 weeks of training provided by the Superior Canine Services of New Milford, including more than 400 hours for narcotics detection. Nero is nationally certified in narcotics detection and full patrol duties, including tracking, evidence recovery, and criminal apprehension. At a little over 1 year of age, Nero is proving a great working dog and is very good with people. So on behalf of all the citizens of Portland, we welcome you, Nero, to the police department.
What's his badge number? What's his badge number?
Really a wonderful dog.
What number badge does he have?
Just real quick, thank you everyone who came tonight to support us. It means a lot to us. Okay, you can go to work now. Sue, thank you. I appreciate it. All the board members tonight, thanks for taking the time to recognize he and I. It means a lot to us. Appreciate it. Lieutenant Millardo, all the guys I work with, thank you for putting the time in while I was away. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into training a dog, especially in the early phases, and you guys stepped up, and that means a lot to me. So you have a real solid working dog here who you can call on. And publicly, I probably never thank my family, and I probably don't do that enough. But out of all the assignments I've had in my career, this one probably affects them the most. I'm away from work, from them for work and training. And when I'm not with him at work, he's with us at home, and they open their arms to him. He's part of the family now, and you can see he just wants to go to work. So this is quite boring. So thank you to my wife and son especially, and now it's time to get back to work, and we look forward to serving the community and the town however we can. Okay. Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All the great work.
This is the fun part of being first selectman, to be able to recognize a lot of the honors that we have here in our town. Now, the next two honorees are two young people. They're under 40 years of age, and I think it's really remarkable that they're both from Portland, and they've both been named two of 40 people in the entire state, and they're recognized for their work. And I'm going to read a couple of things that they have said. The first is Brenda Mirzajuski. And I probably didn't say that right. Right, Brenda? Where are you? Thank you, Brenda. Come on up. And Brenda says, what's your biggest passion? You've been asked. My biggest passion is my family, she answers. The entire reason I'm thriving as an entrepreneur is because of the love I have for my family, my dedication to providing for them and providing healthy products that I know are safe and effective for them. I am also a makeup addict, and as I get older, taking care of your skin is of course more and more important. Using products that are made right here in our backyard, the town of Portland, chemical-free, and still having glam is a win-win for Brenda. And we want to recognize you, Brenda, as the founder and president of Mitzi Cosmetics. You were awarded by the Hartford Business Journal the 2017 Connecticut's 40 Under 40 of top up-and-coming young professionals who are leading their respective organizations. And let it be known that I, Susan Bransfield, as first selectwoman, along with the Board of Selectmen and the townspeople of Portland, we hereby recognize, respect, and congratulate you, Brenda, on being a very high achiever and contributing exemplary community service to us here in Portland as a business professional. Congratulations. And Brenda's going to say a few words.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say wow, this is taller than me. I just want to thank everybody, thank the town of Portland, Susan, and everybody in the town for your continued support and purchasing our products and just helping me grow. I'd like to just make a quick little announcement. I've been pitching to national TV for 2 years to get on national TV, and yesterday I got a phone call. The Dr. Oz show has invited me to be a guest on Thursday, and I will be interviewed by Dr. Oz and Barbara Cochran from the Shark Tank. So you'll have to watch me. It'll be on after Thursday, but I'll let everybody know. But finally, got national television. Thank you.
Always nice to have the exclusive news here. Our next awardee is Jeremy Beret. Jeremy, are you here? Yes. Come on up, Jeremy. Jeremy is the CEO of Suburban Incorporated, lives in Portland, and answered an interesting question that I want to read here. If you were governor of Connecticut, maybe we'll elect you, I think, for one day, what is one policy that you would push to improve the state's future? And Jeremy answered, if I were governor of Connecticut for a day, the issue I would address is our health care. We all deserve the best quality of life possible, and this all begins with our health. Any positive change we can make in health care would be just one more positive step toward improving life in our state. Affordability for the individual and businesses is critical with this, as well as not only ensuring our physical health, but our fiscal health as well. Rah, rah. Healthcare would be my priority number one. And Jeremy, we have an award for you from the town of Portland. We're so proud of both you and Brenda. May it be known this certificate is given by the Board of Selectmen to Jeremy Beret, CEO, Suburban Incorporated, for being awarded by the Hartford Business Journal the 2017 Connecticut 40 Under 40 of top up-and-coming young professionals. Let it be known that the Selectmen and the townspeople of Portland do hereby extend our respect and congratulations to you, Jeremy, on being, as our Brenda, a high achiever and contributing exemplary community service as a business professional. Congratulations.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you to the board. We all very much appreciate your service. And this award wouldn't be possible without my mother, my father, our team at Suburban, my brothers, friends who are in this room as well, my wife, Michelle. And really, this is an award that's a testament to the town of Portland. I've lived in the town since I was in second grade. We moved here. I was 7, kicking and screaming. My mother made me come, of course. She wouldn't let me out on my own then. But I came, went all the way through the Portland school system, and again, without the support of the town, the school system, who got me into UConn, and from there off to the races. So again, a testament to the town. Thank you very much for your support over the years. This wouldn't be possible without all of you in this room. So thank you so much.
And our last award for tonight, last but not least, outstanding new business for under just 5 years. And the award goes to Victorian Inspirations. Join us, Ellen. And this was a special award from the Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce. All these awards were not given by Portland, but they were recognition of these young professionals by outside organizations. And the competition is stiff, I can tell you. Owner of Victorian Inspirations, Ellen Foster came to Connecticut from South Florida in August of 2013 after accepting the position of Chief Financial Officer for a large dealership group. After a 40-year career in auto industry for several very large groups across the country, Ellen decided to semi-retire after 13 months on the job. Having always wanted to open her own small boutique or elegant gift shop, Ellen decided that timing in life is everything, and it was time to reach for the stars. Coming from the large cities in Florida, I don't think Ellen had any idea what to expect when she opened her shop here in Portland. Starting in just a 750 square foot location gave her the opportunity to explore the area, and just 13 months after that was able to expand into your present location in a much bigger shop just down the street. The totally renovated space has 3 times the space of the original at 1,650 square feet. Middlesex County has been a great place to open and grow her new business. And I'm going to read our plaque to you, Ellen. This is awarded to you on behalf of the Portland Board of Selectmen, Ellen Foster, owner, Victorian Inspirations. For being awarded by the Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce to be the 2017 Outstanding New Business Under 5 Years Award. This is being given to you, Ellen, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen and all the townspeople of Portland. We extend our respect and congratulations to you for growing your business and creating such a strong customer and community presence. Welcome, and many more years to you in your shop on Main Street. Congratulations.
Well, as Susan said, when I first came here from South Florida, I came to be the CFO for a big group. And when I started looking around, after I decided not to go back to Florida, I found the little shop on Main Street, and the rest is history, going into our 3rd year. And it's through hard work, but the backing of all of you, the whole town of Portland. It's extended all over the place. I mean, half the board members are my customers. So, I mean, it's just been wonderful. The friendships that I have gained through my customers, and it's just been wonderful. I can't imagine being anywhere else. Thank you.
And we are going to now return to our sidewalk public hearing. So if you don't want to stay, you're free to leave, but you're of course welcome to stay as well. And congratulations once again to all of our awardees tonight. And where's Bob Heron? Come on back. You can stay here. Why don't you grab this one right here, and we'll just pull another chair over and catch. Thank you. This is musical chairs. East Main Street.
Yeah, I think we were, and I want to go back to East Main, but before we get, there were 1, 2, 3, 4 houses on the, I guess it'd be the south side, looks like the odd number of Waverly. Is there anyone from that stretch of the road, kind of after you cross East Main? I'm looking at like 25, 29, 31, and 33. Of Waverly? Yes, yeah. After East Main, anyone? No? Okay. Do you know what, of course you do. What's your number? I'm sorry. 19? Okay. But you're technically, is it 19 Waverly or 19 East Main? It's East Main. Okay, so that's one of the areas too that we're looking at. Again, you maybe have noticed on Fairview, south side as you go towards Foley, there's a sidewalk that's being put in right now that connects to the front sidewalk of the town hall. Then kind of wrapping around, we were going to try and continue it around that side of Waverly. So there's at least one on that side. But on that south side, I guess that's another question similar to what we were saying before. We're thinking of either, again, not doing anything with it or maybe pulling it up instead of replacing it just to save some money and to try and stretch the dollars. So you being on that side, what we're thinking of is that we would just, I think you have a connecting from your door next to your driveway out to the front of Waverly, I guess, if you will. So we would kind of continue that and make sure that you could get a path out there. So then the question is, are you okay if the sidewalk wasn't there that would connect you, kind of going towards High? So I guess, so your sidewalk goes through your driveway, basically, is what you're saying. So again, we haven't decided on that, but I would imagine that we would work with either putting asphalt on there, to the end of the driveway, and not just pull it up and leave like a rut,
We have the option to not have it down from where our driveway is down the dead end, and keep it from the side of our house.
I'm not sure what your question is. What?
Yeah, like, could we have the option to keep what part of the sidewalk we want, and just have it go all down the side of the house? I don't care that the tail end of Waverly by our house doesn't have it, we don't like shoveling it anyway.
They just live on the corner, so would you take the sidewalk out from the corner going all the way down to the dead end? Or
Yes.
would the sidewalk, okay.
That would be the
That
idea.
whole side.
That whole
would
side,
end at the inside.
there would be no connection then. Again, is the thought. Yeah.
Francis, that's where you
I live, over 19 East Main Street, and I have to say, we have elderly people that live in our neighborhood, we have people with babies and carriages, and a lot of kids live in our neighborhood, they ride bikes and, run up and down the street playing, and if we don't have sidewalks on our street, I don't know what's gonna happen to these kids. And I have to say, on Halloween, we get every kid in town coming to our area, because that's where the sidewalks are, and I just can't even see how we can have a neighborhood, so centrally located to the library, the church, the town hall, and all of these other, agencies, and have no sidewalks. I think it's.
And you're talking specifically on Waverly now, right? Not East Main. Yeah. East Main. Yeah.
Our house, we have a bus stop in front of our house too, so I don't want the sidewalk right up there, because our bus will take it from the house.
Okay. That's on the corner, on the East Main side.
On our corner, the 19, it's on the corner, is a bus stop.
Mm-hmm.
And, so at the sidewalk, I think is needed there.
I'm just saying, again, don't know how the buses are running, but could the kids be on the other side? I mean, if that was all new.
The bus is heading the other way, so they'd have to cross the street. I don't know what to do, but buses, put their stops there, and cars still plow right by it.
Okay.
But it stops at that stop sign anyway, they still drive right through it. And not slow either, they're going at 60 miles an hour.
Okay.
The other thing is if you took the sidewalks away, then it seems like people would be walking through each other's grass to get from house to house. If you want to visit your neighbor, you're not gonna cross the street and walk on the other side of the street and come back. You would just be cutting through the grass to get to people's houses, which seems ridiculous.
You would vote no against that. Okay. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Look at that.
You're on East Main. I'm Waverly. We did East Main. All right.
Someone taking control. Thank you.
I'm on 18. I'm right across from the church
Okay.
on Waverly.
Yep.
And I want to know, like, do you mean eliminating one whole side because you got the church?
Not on that section. No. Both sides.
On my side then?
No, so on both sides, so you're on Waverly, so between Main and East Main, going east, if it has two sidewalks now, it's going to remain two sidewalks.
Okay. Well, this is a two-parter.
Okay?
I had to pay to have my sidewalk done. Had I known you guys were gonna open up the pocketbook strings and do it, I mean, I've been in the town forever. I've been on there since 1986, and the rule has always been, as far as I'm concerned, and that I know, if you got a sidewalk in front of your house, you're responsible for it, for shoveling, somebody falls, whatnot, I mean, and repair. Now all of a sudden, we've got a windfall of cash, and I had to go out and kick it out of my own
again, not my jurisdiction, but now, how long ago was the sidewalk done? Like 5 years?
5, 6,
Okay. It's still in pretty good
in
shape?
good condition.
So that potentially could be one that we wouldn't touch then, you know?
I understand
Yeah.
that, but what I'm saying is I had to pay for it.
I get it.
And now all of a sudden we've got extra cash.
Well, I think part of what again, this is not the purview of our committee, but, you know, the town,
You can make a note and see, you can get back to me if I can get a little something
we'd like the town to increase and have not just once every 20 years a $1 million budget,
Well,
you know, bond thing,
and
you know.
frankly, the selectmen, not tonight, but other nights, have had discussions as to whether we will change the ordinance, or as to whether, with a bond referendum that was passed, if this is going to be done without any compensation from the contiguous landowners. That hasn't been firmly decided by this board, and that's why we're meeting tonight.
That's
So,
my main question. I mean, if
Good question.
I've got to shovel it, and I've got to be responsible to repair it, I mean, now all of a sudden, someone would have said, hey, don't do that, because in a few years,
Well, the ordinance only has you to ice and snow.
and that's another thing.
there's
One-
two ordinances, one is ice and snow, and the other one does say,
You gotta shovel and all it, you gotta
and
be
you gotta
repaired.
repair
Okay.
it.
Right, but now all of a sudden, we're changing that, cause we found cash, but, when you were saying like, oh, don't put the sidewalk in front of Trinity Church back there, because who's gonna be responsible?
The cemetery.
The cemetery, because, well, they're responsible for it. Well, here's the thing, when they're not responsible, whether it's a homeowner or a church, I don't care what it is, and you call up and make a complaint, you're still on the road, because nobody is there to say, hey, you, get out there and shovel, you own it. No one enforces it. Are you fining somebody for being a deadbeat and not shoveling?
What we have done, and Rick Kelsey is here, he inspects, finds where they haven't done it. He, on occasion, after a letter has gone out to the homeowner to shovel, and they don't, then our crews go out and they shovel, and then an invoice is sent to the property.
Good. I like that. 6 days later. Well, that's the thing, it's not,
Right.
I know.
It's not
It's
immediate.
not
You're right.
immediate. That's
You're
why
right.
I've already been there. I've been there.
You're
So
right.
That's why I brought it up.
Yep.
Okay, I'm done, go ahead.
John, yes, we'll just kind of go this way.
All right,
Go ahead,
I'll do
yeah.
this, John, and then-
Yeah, JD.
If I understand it correctly, the reason we're focusing on this area of town is because it's close in proximity to this. And it has.
Half mile of school was what we were told to
Yeah,
look
and
at,
it
of
has
any
to
of the
do
schools.
with safety of the pedestrian traffic. Then I don't understand the logic with repairing one side of the street and removing sidewalks on the other side of the street. If you mentioned earlier that you might want to explore as a board, taking some money from this stipend and asking the property owner to contribute. If that would be an option to upgrade sidewalks on both sides of the street. If a street has sidewalks, you don't want to eliminate it. That doesn't make sense, that's counterproductive. We have a lot of foot traffic on our street, East Main. If I understand you, you just put a new town sidewalk in and around the town hall, but my property next door is not gonna have a sidewalk. And then as they said earlier, there's a bus stop at the corner of Waverly and East Main Street. And there is a large number of young families, young children, bicycles, strollers in the neighborhood. And I wouldn't wanna have one child getting hit by a car.
Sure.
Because he's crossing the street to the sidewalk side, because the town removed the other side.
John, remind me, your home, is it right next to Town Hall?
Right next to
So that sidewalk, again, in front of Town Hall, I don't know that we're touching that because that's fairly new. But from you down to, or from that house down to Waverly, that would be new.
But you said that the other side of the street was gonna be the side that you keep.
Yeah, there's like one, so if you kind of, where the new sidewalk is on Fairview for the town that goes down to Foley, if you kind of wrap it around the Town Hall and around Waverly, that's going to be
Well,
kept, yeah.
It's really, it doesn't matter where my house is, I'm saying, it's just the concept of removing existing sidewalks.
You're against it.
Doesn't make sense.
Got it. Noted.
It's a safety issue.
John?
Why are we not pursuing the people
people that own the property. In other words, years ago, a sewer line ran by your house and you had to pay the assessment. If the property needs new sidewalks, and the property owner isn't smart enough to put them in, why aren't we going there and saying this was the deal when you bought a house, you know, downtown? Why is everybody in town paying for these sidewalks in front of people's houses? And yeah, it's not fair because not everybody's gonna get a new sidewalk in town. We only got $1 million. And it wasn't a windfall, it wasn't pennies from heaven. This is taxpayers' hard-earned money.
That decision hasn't been made, John.
But what I'm
And
saying
that's
is,
what we wanna
what I
hear.
would do for that $1 million you got, is these areas you wanna target, is I would offer the people that live there, you use our contractor because he's spec'd out, he knows what he's doing, he's giving us the best price, and we're gonna give you a low interest or no interest loan. Otherwise, go find the money and get this done, or you're gonna be cited.
Well, you know what, as a homeowner with a sidewalk, if somebody thinks they're gonna walk on a sidewalk I paid for, it's not gonna happen. If it's my sidewalk, it's gonna be no trespass, and I'm not gonna pay for something that really sounds like awful.
But, and I don't know that this is something that we want to get into tonight, but this is in the public right away, so I don't know that you'd have that. Yes?
Forgive me, I'm a little confused here. I think what I heard you say earlier was that the removal of the sidewalk, well, I'm 47 East Main Street, Jim Sidewalk, the removal of the sidewalk on the east side of East Main Street would only be from Freestone to Waverly, is that correct? And all the rest would remain starting at the corner of Waverly and going all the way to...
No, it is confusing because it is skipping a little bit. You're right. So if I go from Freestone to Spring on your odd side, the 57 side, so that first block, we would either leave, not do anything with it, or pull the sidewalks up. Then you go to the, I'll call it the town hall block. That would have new sidewalks if needed, so there's a connection there. And then once you cross over Fairview to Spring Street, again, either do nothing or pull them up and bring the homeowner to the street. So where would you fit in that? Where's your home?
And I'm 4 houses up from Town Hall.
Okay. So for your home, what would you prefer? Would you prefer it, if there wasn't enough money to do it on both sides, would you leave it or pull it? You just did. Okay. Okay. You've asked way too many questions tonight. I'm kidding.
I haven't been able to hear everybody clearly. I live at 29 Waverly Avenue. They were talking about that as one of the houses. And I don't know what anybody has said very clearly because I don't hear that problem.
Okay.
But anyway, I have no objection without a sidewalk.
Okay. Is there anyone else on, I think we're almost all over here, but East Main is our main thing, but anything in general? Yes, Joe?
Joe Gill on 50 East Main Street. Just as a general rule, I think where sidewalks exist now, they should remain. It's an old neighborhood, it's well established. You got utility poles to work with, you got, some of the trees will actually have to come down. And also the section of, in front of the cemetery, you know, there was some old brownstone slabs that were buried under the sod that got taken out a few years back. But for anybody who walks that side of the street in the early morning, you're walking down the sidewalk and you're gonna walk through the grass, you step out into the road and walk back on that side. So I think it's you have sidewalks on both ends, you gotta make that connection. And as far as winter maintenance, if it happens, it doesn't happen, you know, it'll get done. One of the neighbors, somebody will do it, I'm pretty sure of that. But I think just if they're established now, the old neighbors, I think it should stay where they are. Whether or not we repair them, replace them now, or put them on kind of a, future plan. Because to remove them, you're removing the concrete, you've gotta put topsoil and seed back in, you gotta extend most of the people have sidewalks that go out to the sidewalk.
Right.
Now you're placing that in the street too, so, and then, what do you do? We put ramps for everybody at the curb and step off the curb, so
Okay. Anyone else who hasn't been heard that wants to make sure they're on the record?
I would like to say something, and stop me if it's already been directed, because I got late. My name is Sarah Sterry, I live at 32 East Main Street.
Thank you, Sarah.
And I run the Memorial Day Parade in town. We have the holiday parade coming up, as well as any of us that live downtown. Halloween is coming. I am OCD. I want to make sure that every child has candy. I get a minimum of 280 children at my home. So that shows the amount of kids, and I know the Dillons must get more because they have an extravaganza of Halloween set up. All joking aside, we have a traffic pattern of children. So we have the parade that comes by, people sitting out and watching for the parade. We have the holiday parade, which lines up right in front of my house. So the kids run up and down East Main Street. And I think it would be a disservice to the kids and people on East Main Street, especially in the downtown area, to take sidewalks away, because you are gonna be pushing kids into the street. And we can't force parents to watch their children, and sometimes they don't, and they're gonna be running off. But I think we need, as a safety concern, to have the sidewalks there for the kids.
Okay.
One more.
Whoop, yep.
I think if you want to eliminate one of these East Main Street signs, you ought to go door to door. Because you're gonna get those all the way. You got
No's
too
for
many
removal?
kids.
Right, to keep them, what you're saying, people wanna hang
Now,
on to them, yeah.
If you need to spend the money, take the money and spend it on the police and have them stop the people going 60. That's only a 25-mile-an-hour zone there. But people go 50 to 60.
Which part of this is on East Main, you're saying, or where?
East Main.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got kids right now that cross where the cemetery is. They have to cross to, there's a bus stop across the street.
Thank you.
Jim Sarbo?
Sorry, Jim?
Question, and that is, you know, like, it's not easy to shovel grass. Right now, we have door-to-door delivery. We don't have mailboxes out on the street. And the whole streetscape would change if we had to do that. So, I just.
In the winter, they'd have to walk a little more, you're right, because you wouldn't be shoveling that side with snow. Well, again, the town, if there was a sidewalk taken away, what we've talked about is that the town, if you have like most people do on East Main, you come out the front steps. You probably have something that goes to the driveway as well. But that we would take you all the way out to East Main. If there's 5 feet, 10 feet, whatever, there would be a connection to the street. But no,
But
I guess
think
horizontal or
that-
cross.
If I could, I think that the mail carrier, the daily mail carrier does walk on the sidewalk and goes up to, no, he doesn't walk?
Yeah, they walk this grass. They cut across the lawn.
On your street, Jim, does he walk on the sidewalk? No? Yes.
On East Main Street, on our side, he walks into the grass and follows the grass down. Right, cause he hits money, hits Felicia, he walks right in the grass. He
Oh.
follows the grass right down. Yeah.
Some houses, yes.
Did you want to say something
Yeah,
over here?
Allen Road 51 East Main, so mailman walking aside. I agree, it doesn't make sense to remove sidewalks if they're already there. If there is a person who wants to remove it because it's in really bad shape, that should be a door-to-door decision. Two, for the recent improvement work that was done like on the side of Town Hall, is that unrelated to this
It is.
budget?
Yeah, it was something from last year, they're already in the works.
Okay, and then three, I guess, just the next step in the process, these are obviously open comments, as it goes to open bid, is there a plan that's agreed upon by the selectmen, voting, what's the next step in the process?
Yeah, it is. My understanding is that after the public hearing, all the notes are going to be compiled. First Selectmen will probably talk about it a little bit tonight. As you know, there's an election coming up. I don't know what will be decided before the election. Most of the folks will probably be back.
The reason
so.
for that is not all of the sitting selectmen are running. So Kathy is not going to be here after this meeting. So that's what he
Fred.
means. But we wanted to get this discussion started, so while everybody's here tonight, not everyone can be here. So we'll possibly have another time for people to have input. Either you can write to me and I'll share that with the selectmen, or we may have another hearing.
So I guess I'm not really concerned, what's the next step in terms of making a decision about what gets done?
Gotta come to the selectmen tonight. They're gonna talk about what they're hearing tonight. And the committee will also be putting forward their plan to us, the selectmen, that will review it.
Okay.
And then it goes out to bid, and then it will get done.
Okay, so there's a step where the plan is developed and the selectmen approve.
That's where we are now.
Yeah. And hopefully-
Bob is the chairman of the committee.
board type thing. So what's your plan from comments tonight to revision to actually get those?
Well, now it's going to be in the board of selectmen's hands to do something with it.
Like now, like 10 minutes from now?
Starting tonight, yeah, but at whatever meetings they have other business to take care of, I'm sure. Are you looking for a particular firm date?
I'm just interested in, we're talking about a number of changes, this street, that street, and now we're
They're
saying
not
it's
gonna
got,
make it.
apparently you have a plan in your hand, and it's gonna be voted on in 5 minutes, so I just. Okay.
Kitch wants to say something.
So I think probably you would like to know if we're going to take some action tonight. So missing tonight are our two representatives from this body that serve on the sidewalk committee. So we absolutely have to have their input as well. So we may discuss it tonight, but I don't think that we'll have a decision tonight because there was public comment. The committee needs to look at the comments, put them together, and we'll discuss it at some level tonight, but then everybody will have to get together again. So I would guess it's probably going to be at least the next meeting or beyond that.
So this audience will know the distribution of whatever
Correct.
changes before the vote happens by the selectmen? If there are changes to whatever the proposed plan is, will this room know about it before the board votes on it?
So I guess that means what you're asking whether or not we're going to close the public hearing tonight.
No, I think what we typically do is with our public meetings, our minutes are published, and in terms of final decisions, they're made within the minutes. So there'll be a motion that would be made based on the best plan that's brought forward through the input of the committee, as well as the input that we're having here tonight, and perhaps other nights as well. You know, there's a lot of issues when it comes to sidewalks, and you're hearing a lot of them tonight, and I think there's even more that we haven't even begun to talk about. So to answer you directly, we're not going to have an answer tonight. There probably won't be an answer in short order because there's going to be a new board here at the end of November. Hopefully many of us will still be here, and you'll still be here. But the process is this board will make the decision that's made public, then it goes out to bid. So the bid documents would be published, people know about it. But before we even get there, there's probably going to be a lot more discussion on this.
And I think,
Does that help you, or do you still have a question?
I think the question is that, I'm sorry,
Well-
do we get another chance to discuss your final decision? Like, so.
I would
don't
say
think
you
we all
do.
wanna know what the final
Yes.
decision is and don't have a chance to.
I would say they do.
discuss
Yes.
it.
Yes.
I think that's the question.
We'll have another public hearing at which you can see some of the decisions that have been made, yes.
And-
But before we even get there, it's a very open process. And if you have something you want to write down, or you want to telephone, or you want to tell us, we have public hearings all the time, public comment before we have meetings.
and to give you an example, what we budgeted, we only have $1 million. So there's been a lot of discussion tonight about saving both sides of the street. And if that's what everybody wants, the reality is we probably can't do all of that area. So a couple things would then come on the table. Is there going to be an assessment to the owners? If the owners truly want it and they want to keep the sidewalks, that's fine. Everybody, input is great. But the reality is we have $1 million and we're trying to stretch it. I think the committee's done an excellent job, and I wanted to defend you a few times earlier. It's only $1 million. We have a lot of sidewalks. We're taking on a big animal here. It's very expensive. We don't have a lot of money. The reality is they were trying to connect a lot of areas to make them safer than they are. But if people do want all the sidewalks in town fixed and they're okay with an assessment or however, that's fine too. But that's where this discussion, I think, is going to go. So there's a lot of things, no decision's going to be made. It can't be made tonight.
Just trying to understand the process before I find out if the sidewalk's being removed or not.
What street are you on again?
51 East Main.
East Main. Sir?
Okay, Tim McKinnon, 21 Fairview. I was waiting for you to ask about Fairview residents, but we just skipped over. Our sidewalks where we live are fine. They don't need repair. But 3-4 years ago, my wife fell and broke her wrist on a town sidewalk. Why aren't we talking about fixing those areas?
Where was that? Can I ask where that was? Main Street? That is one of the streets we're talking about tonight, between Fairview and Spring? No, Fairview.
No, Main.
We're not talking about.
There was some at the end, small areas. Right across from
My point
Diz.
is, there are some definite areas in town that need repair.
Yep.
As opposed to taking whole sections of a street and replacing them.
Let me tell you one other thing, because we've had these discussions among the 7 of us, too. There's some concern on the part of some of the selectmen that the state of Connecticut owns the right-of-way on Main Street and on Route 66 and on 17, as you know. Now, the state of Connecticut has told Rick Kelsey and me, you're on your own, town. You deal with those sidewalks yourselves. And yet there's selectmen that refuse to vote to allow repairs to be made on state sidewalks. So when I say there's a lot of issues associated with ownership of sidewalks, use of sidewalks, if we're going to change the ordinance, and the ordinance does say that first selectmen are supposed to ask the designee, and it's i.e. Richard Kelsey, to go out and identify all the broken sidewalks and then demand that you repair them. Now, we have not done that. We have not been that onerous at each person. We can do that. But to do that means each homeowner would have to go out and get their own contractor, and it might end up being more expensive than if we do it as a group. So one of the things that we wanted to get started is the repair. We know the sidewalks need repair. So you voted yes on $1 million towards sidewalks. And how we're going to administer the expenditure and which sidewalks are going to be replaced and whether or not it's going to come as a payment right out of that bond that you're all paying for, and so are all the other people that aren't here tonight. Or do we look at some other methodology? And that would include an assessment on people's properties using a lower cost vendor that the town is able to negotiate with. Or some towns have said, we're gonna fix your sidewalks because you live close to a school, and that's what Bob said early on. You live within a half mile of a school, there's a lot of public use of your sidewalks. And we could say, because I've seen some towns do this, I'm not saying we're going to, but we could, we're gonna fix your sidewalks, and you're gonna sign an agreement with the town that if there's damage done by you or in 25 years, when maybe you're not even there anymore, you're gonna be responsible for repairing those. Now, I'm not saying we're gonna do that. That's what the state of Connecticut did for us when we repaired the sidewalks on Main Street from the bridge to the juncture with East 66, is they made us sign an agreement that they'll pay to fix those sidewalks, but should they get broken again, we have to take care of them.
So Susan, that
Yes.
sidewalk that just got repaired in front of the school, by the Brownstone School, is that a part of this, or is that another?
The reason we're doing those sidewalks is they're town-owned. We're the contiguous landowner. The Brownstone Intermediate School, we're the contiguous landowner at Town Hall, at the library, at the senior center. So it is our responsibility as a municipality to fix those sidewalks, and that's why we're fixing them. We're using an amalgamation of different funds. Over the years, we've been able to save some dollars, some of which is local capital improvement planning money, LoCIP money that the state of Connecticut gives to us. And we get permission to use those dollars as well as some other dollars. So that's a little bit different than what we're talking about, because we're talking about sidewalks in front of businesses on some cases, few cases, but mostly residents. And remember, the whole idea is to make this a more walkable, safer, and I would argue, a better looking and a more valuable neighborhoods. I mean, if you have new sidewalks and everybody looks the same, and you look down the street and you see this ribbon of sidewalk all the way down, they're straight, you got nice curbs, somebody mentioned curbs. Our curbs are horrible right now. If you have a real curb, you know you get to the end of the curb, you look both ways and you cross. Right now, there is no curb on Freestone. I can't stand those sidewalks. They're so dangerous, really, for the traffic. So there's a lot of reasons for us to do this project, but the number one is safety and the nature of where you live, which is next to schools. And the whole idea is that children should be walking to schools, and that we should be walking as we all get older. Walking is healthy. We go to churches, we go to the library, and many town hall, Buck Foreman. There's so many different places that it will make our community so much more valuable, both from a quality of life as well as a safety and, I would say, value. But how we do that?
One final comment.
Yes.
As a taxpayer, as a citizen, I have maintained my sidewalks, I have shoveled my sidewalks.
Thank you.
I have good sidewalks.
Yes.
I don't want them replaced. Spend your money somewhere else. And I'm at 21.
21, I wrote that down. And some of them, you're correct, some of them will not be replaced. And Rick has looked at those with our town engineer, and there are many of the sidewalks that are in good shape that we will not have to. Now, in some cases, if you look at Fairview, they're doing an, what do you call that kind of curb?
That's what we're doing at the town hall, for example, on Fairview, sliding the sidewalk next to the road, we get the best bang for the buck on the nice concrete curb. Snow removal is easy for us, which is why, one of the reasons we're responsible for it. So, it's a good way to do it. There's no utility poles, or sometimes we can do that, sometimes we can't. If there's the power poles or hydrants or other obstacles, then we have to set back off the edge of the road. So, there's a lot to it.
Jim, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Jim Promolis, 33 Fairview Street. Just a question about, you mentioned curbing. Is curbing included in this project?
Yes.
And what types of curbs are there going to be installed?
Maybe I can answer that best. Another issue we have is sidewalks, and one of the reasons we're replacing the one on Fairview is it's extremely low, so it tends to pond in the winter, so it's icy, so it's a sea. But wherever we can, generally, and there's no obstacles, we will most likely prefer to go with what we call a concrete sidewalk with a monolithic curb. So it's one in the states where we have a concrete curb and a sidewalk adjacent. That's preferred for a number of reasons. Sometimes we can't do that, like I said. So it's on where you live. Unfortunately, I think we will not be able to do that. I think we have power poles. Do we have power poles? Nope, then we would be able to do that. So that would be good. Storm drains. Storm drains are fine. That's okay. So curbing, for example, I just walked out, we were having the Board of Selectmen's meeting, and I looked specifically, I'm fairly familiar with most of the sidewalks, and I did look specifically at Mr. Lambrosi's and the area by the church and out here, and there's very little curb reveal there. There's only a small bit, and again, like they say, when you chips, you raise the road, so you lose less reveal, and the water tends to run in. So I specifically kind of looked at that area. And in an area such as that, we most likely would try to do some type of curbing. We can elevate the sidewalk there quite easily, but you got power poles, so I can't do what we're doing at the town hall. So we would most likely have to do something with curbing. We'd have an offset sidewalk within the grass, and of course, you have a grass strip, and you got the poles, and then we would, yes, we would have to do something with the curbing. I'm not sure what type. Again, it's all about money. So we got, like Ben said, we've got $1 million that we're trying to stretch as far as we can, do the best thing we can to make a connected group of sidewalks safe, rather than jump here and there. Again, we've looked at all options, and these are, we're trying to do the best we can with the resource we have, and that's really it. So we're interested in anything you folks have to say. It's all good.
David?
Sorry, I'm at 32 East Main Street, Dave Rudder. As far as that monolithic curb, that isn't on my side of the street, is it, Rick? Just because you know my sidewalk, I've already redone it, and the curbing on mine.
But honestly, on that side, one of the reasons we look at that side of East Main Street, just as looking, there's no decision been made, is there's an area where the power poles
Yeah, but what I'm asking, so you're looking at replacing the whole
I'm
curb?
not, we're not looking at anything necessarily.
well-
We're asking for your comments,
Yeah.
and we appreciate
Well,
what
you-
you have to say.
I would rather the sidewalk, even though the sidewalk being pushed out would probably be the best on that side, but again, it is where it is, and I've already replaced 90% of that sidewalk where it is.
And I'm aware of it.
And you would probably be better off leaving that sidewalk right where it's at, because it would cost you more to get rid of it than and move it over. It's been there, so.
Well, again, it needs to be said also is that the intent isn't to replace all the sidewalks, to be clear.
Yeah.
There's many sidewalks, fortunately, that are in good condition. But what, unfortunately, so we're trying to look at, I mean, so I can walk down the sidewalk here and I can say, oh, there's 10 feet that's good, and there's 30 feet that's bad. Well, you know, where do you start, where do you stop? So, for example, Freestone is a good, most of your, so there's good sidewalks down, there's good sidewalks right out here in front. We wouldn't remove those, we'd replace those. There's good sidewalks down by Liberty Bank. We wouldn't replace those. There's good sidewalk up by the church, Long Church, fortunately for us, so we aren't gonna replace those. But what I don't think we wanna do, for any number of reasons, is to leave, is to start attacking 10-foot bad section. and
Well,
then
that's-
there's a
I
10-foot
agree.
good section. I don't think that's the.
No.
I don't think that's good plan.
I think I was more leaning towards where you're looking at replacing the curbs on East Main
Yeah.
Street on my side.
Yep.
And just doing the curbs and leave the sidewalk.
Yep.
And then my other question is, we have plenty of people in town that do this, and we could probably make that $1 million stretch a little bit further.
Well, I think
If there
probably-
was a way to have people who do this for a living, if they really wanna do stuff for the town, to help out and do it at no cost of somebody digging it up and pouring concrete, because, I mean, as far as this town goes, there's 1,000,001 contractors in here to do this, and they could probably do it. I mean, I have 3 machines myself, and I would love to help tear up a
Again,
couple.
I think that's all good, David. But I can tell you this, is when we, for example, we went to bid on the sidewalks that you're seeing us do now.
Mhm.
And an open bid process, typically, we get 5 or 6 contractors that do that. Specific, matter of fact, the contractor that's doing this work right now, I'm very pleased with. And he came in like
Dirt cheap.
an extremely good price. So, and the other thing is uniformity too. So again, if I'm the same as you, I like to do my own thing, but you need some consistency. So we might be very well be able to, depending what the selectmen come up with as far as how do we go about this. You know, let's say that it's an assessment deal, or let's say we share the cost. You know, I think probably we can lever cost as good as anybody from the bidding perspective and get a good job. My 2 cents. You know,
I think at this point, the public hearing part could be over unless anyone wants to,
By the
something they
way,
haven't talked about.
I have a question.
Yes.
My name is Bill Kutz. I live on 57 Spring Street. What are you planning to do on Spring Street?
Where's 57?
The last house before you get on High Street.
Rick, do you want to address that?
I bought my property 50 years ago. I replaced the sidewalk twice, my own money. I have the best sidewalk on the whole street. I'm very proud of my sidewalk. Anyway, I don't think you have to do anything on my side, on my property. But some sidewalks on my street, they're non-existent. Some of them just is part of the road. And there are a lot of children, you talk about East Main Street and that, most children, they come up Spring Street. You ever thought about that? Most, you start from East Main Street, but you all come to Spring Street, up the hill. Now, those sidewalks, you gotta take first. My house, I take care of my house. And I think you're just wasting your money if you do something to it, because it in best condition it can be. And anybody in this town who knows this town, they can say, my sidewalk's fine. But I seen an awful lot of children walking on Spring Street.
Spring
And
Street is
some
one of
of
the
these-
ones that we're
some
gonna
of
do.
these
I don't mean to cut you off, but
sidewalks
it is
are-
gonna be done. So
Oh.
right now with Spring, going from, Main to East Main, I think they might be on, gonna be,
They have
replaced.
on one side and then it's on the other.
It's good, it's concrete.
I know.
But then it's gonna switch over, through the south side, and it will go all the way up to your house. So there's gonna be a new sidewalk all the way up, and that's due in part to the road bonding work that's gonna be done. Because, Rick has some other work that's gonna be redoing some sewers, and they're gonna be tearing up the road, so actually that side will be done as part of that project.
But in other words, you're gonna rip my sidewalk out?
I don't know about your sidewalk, I don't know. But is yours, you're right in the corner there?
Yeah, right on the corner.
So
See,
that.
I always, when I bought my property 50 years ago, I was told the homeowner is responsible for the sidewalk. And that's what you should go
You've
by.
taken care of it.
Anybody doesn't take care of the sidewalk, the town should go and fix it and send the homeowner a bill.
Amen, brother.
And that's the way it should be. And if people don't pay, put a lien on the house. And when the house gets sold, the town gets their money first. That's the way you
I'm
should
gonna vote
go.
for you.
That's the way you should go.
If there's, because I've been at these meetings sometimes,
I
and
mean-
you feel like you're here a long time. If there's anyone that wants to get up and leave at this time, you can. If there's others that still wanna talk, or if everyone wants to stay, that's fine.
Bob.
We can just kinda go around.
Before they leave, could you?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, look at that.
Excuse me?
There's a.
Someone in the back, Bob,
Hang on one second.
Victoria.
There's a couple spots we're adding, or considering adding new sidewalks. Could you just
Victoria,
guide that on like
go ahead.
Freestone so that the property owners understand? I don't even know where you're jumping over and going. There's a nice new section on
Could you
Freestone.
be
that's
quiet
not-
for 1 minute?
Yeah, so.
Quiet,
I
please,
think
we
you
have
should point-
someone.
Anywhere where, I know, but you
One
never said
moment.
where you're jumping across the street or not. Like, you're not gonna go through the wetlands on the south side. You're gonna obviously jump to the north side and connect to that new sidewalk, and then in front of that lady's six-family.
Which is fine, but I actually had a question.
Sure,
We're
go
gonna
ahead,
go-
Victoria.
With regard to the decision.
But then there's already a new sidewalk on the other side, a large
Yep.
section.
Anything in the charter
Why
or
wouldn't we
by
cross over?
ordinance or anything else that establishes priorities and says, what is the purpose of a sidewalk in Portsmouth? So, because I've heard lots of different reasons about, why we should fix or not fix, or, so we've got kids, obviously, people or citizens walking, safety, how it looks, that sort of thing, so I was wondering what,
Yes,
is there a thing?
yes, chapter 17 in the town ordinances,
Okay.
is streets and sidewalks, and it also talks about, driveways, as well as other, mentions as to what they should look like and how they should be built and so forth and so on. Not that this can't change, but this is how you would know what we have on the books. It's old, it probably needs to be updated, but this would be the closest, I think, that you would get to what we have established for sidewalks. The other thing we have, and Bob was part of this, is a complete streets policy, that whenever we do new sidewalks, or we do some bike paths, or we do anything for, improving pedestrians and right, we do have a policy by which we are acting.
Bob, how many, members of the sidewalk committee have a public sidewalk in front of their home or property? Good thing. Why do that? I just wondered how many of them are privileged to have a public sidewalk in front of their property. I don't think so.
Good question.
Susan, you don't have one, right?
I'm not on the sidewalk committee,
You were at that meeting.
but I'll tell you, I use the sidewalks all the time, and, where I live, Cobble Hill does not have sidewalks. But I do use them all the time.
I'm on Main Street, and the gentleman who just walked out, I think he was the one whose wife fell, not in front of my property, but in front of the property next to mine. My block is, Old Brownstone sidewalks. And I walked mine today purposely, before I came to this meeting, to make sure it hadn't deteriorated. I rarely walk my own sidewalk. Looks good to me, but it is brownstone. And so these stones are probably 6 to 8 inches thick. They're long, they're wide, and over the years, there's been shifting. They're law-abiding brownstones. They're absolutely following the law of gravity. They're sinking. We're also at the bottom of a hill. It's a graceful hill, very gradual, but we're at the bottom of a hill. And water is also law-abiding. It follows the law of gravity. So in the wintertime, all that water starts coming down the hill, goes through our brownstone wall, shoots out sometimes. I mean, sometimes you got 2 feet of water shooting out.
Yes.
And there's nothing we can do about it, and it lands on the sidewalk. Now, our sidewalks are in good shape. My next door neighbors are not, but mine are good. However, the problem with mine, and I'm wondering if this is going to be addressed, because if you look at mine, you're gonna say, nice. The brownstones have sunk, you know, they get wet, you know, it's been hundreds of years, they've been sitting there, they're sinking. The grass on the other side, between our sidewalks and the street, is not suffering from brownstone sink. So I've got like a river of water, which freezes. So I can shovel it in the morning. I can go out with my broom and slush as much water off as I'd like. And the water coming through out of the wall freezes at night. I actually got a call from a mommy of somebody who has a child in brownstone school, yelling at me because I started using kitty litter, because I could grab the scoop, and I was kitty littering my sidewalk, and it made her little sweet pie's boots messy. And I told her to take a hike, on my sidewalk, if she'd like. But nonetheless, so my question there is, you know, if you're talking about trying to get consistency within the town, are those possibly, should waste your money on, I'll just put more kitty litter on. But if they were to be raised up or replaced with something higher, you would get more. I'm 319, I'm the big brick thing across from the post office. And,
So that's the section that we've talked about.
Okay.
Main Street was, off the charts, obviously, probably the most used sidewalk in town.
Right.
But there are other monies, there are state issues, but there's some other grants that we're also trying to get, trying to do some connections. So your sidewalks could be, on a list of
Okay.
getting improved or replaced.
Okay.
They're not right now.
Okay,
That's what we're talking
all right.
about. But I think any of those issues that you have with water and drainage, if you think it's something that the towns can help you with, we should be able to connect that.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I'm very familiar with your problem. Not to say that brownstone will always remain there, that's something that we need to look at.
And it went in the mid-1800s.
Yes.
And is it the best material now? To dig those up,
Oh, I know.
oh, they're not this thick, they're stuck.
It's very hard for
They're worth a
people
lot
in
of money.
wheelchairs from Portland Care and Rehab, I know.
They do
can't.
okay
They do
over
okay,
mine.
over yours, but not
But
yours.
as soon as they get to the end of mine, there's like a 1-foot drop. And that's a problem. I'm glad somebody put a cone up there and sprayed it red. And I'm very glad about that, because a couple times in the evening when I have my dog out, I've never fallen, but have you all messed? And it's on brownstone.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Donna Burson, I'm on 20 Fairview, on the lower part between, the intermediate school and the, town hall. And I have maintained my sidewalk right along, like I'm sure a lot of
has not been made, Don.
That's still up with the PLO.
Right.
Thank you.
That's important input that we need to hear, though. Thank you, Don.
From 19 East Main Street, and we live on the corner of East Main and Waverly, so we have like 2 or 3 times as much sidewalk as everybody else. And ours are in pretty good condition, but if we decide to repair and replace all of our sidewalks, we can't afford it. And quite frankly, I don't really think I should be providing a sidewalk for everybody in town to walk on. If I walk out on Penfield Hill Road, I'm on my own in the road, there's no sidewalks there. So why should I spend money to put a sidewalk for other people to walk on or
And we
push
see
their
people
kids in a
come into
carriage?
town, park their car, walk the dogs on our neighborhood, leave their bag of dog crap in our yard, or get bagged or unbagged, and nobody's coming around that picks up after that, you know.
Yeah, but if you don't repair your sidewalk, you're liable if somebody gets hurt.
We do repair ours. I'm not saying.
Well,
we
you're
don't.
just saying that
But
you
I'm
don't
just
wanna
saying,
pay to have
just
it
because we
fixed,
live
but-
in that-
When we have public hearings, we ask that you only address the moderator.
I'm just saying, that why should we have to pay for sidewalks for other people to walk on?
It's a good question. All good questions.
Excuse me.
Sir, Mr. Coots, Mr. Coots,
Point of order.
Mr. Coots.
that's all right.
Point of order.
I think the public hearing's almost over, Bob.
Yeah, so here's what I'm getting, and again, this is a
Good
highly
night, thank you.
volatile situation. Okay, I've
Thank
replaced
you.
my sidewalk at a time I probably couldn't afford it, and I understand her point here where she's saying that people come into town and walk on their sidewalks because I'm actually having a problem that everybody probably knows about people wouldn't assume me about walking on my sidewalk and my dog barking. But there's a lot of things going on here. You guys just said that the piece in front of the thing where you guys are arguing with the state about replacing the sidewalk, and the state is saying that you're responsible to replace the sidewalk, and you guys don't wanna do it. It's almost the same argument that everybody here is having, saying, you want us to pay for the sidewalk to repair, but we don't wanna pay for it. It's kinda like the same argument you're having with the state. And I understand, cause I paid for my sidewalk, okay? And I do understand it, and I understand also that it's a big costing factor, because if I didn't do it myself and replaced my sidewalk in my driveway the way I did it, I wouldn't be able to afford to have somebody else do it. Okay, cause my sidewalk's been there 25 years and it ain't going anywhere. But it's also was
You
done
did a
right.
beautiful, everybody
All right, but
does a
again,
beautiful job.
for the cost factor that it does cost, you are putting a lot of cost on somebody for everybody. And as Jimmy said, who on the sidewalk committee actually has a sidewalk that has to understand the cost burden it does cost to keep a sidewalk up? I think he was putting it, maybe we should have some people who have sidewalks on that committee that understand the cost factor and what you're expecting somebody to pay. Because we do have high taxes and we're getting told that we have to repair the sidewalk and upkeep the sidewalk. And it is a cost burden. Of course, I don't mind, because I keep a good sidewalk. I mean, I do have problems with the lady who says we have a lot of dog walkers that come up and they let dogs into our yard and destroy our grass and destroy our bushes that we spend a lot of money on trying to keep our property nice for everything. But that's one thing that the committee, I think, is everybody's trying to say, is you guys actually have to look at the cost burden you're putting on somebody who's also paying the same taxes as the people who live out of town and don't have that cost burden, because you're putting a lot of tax burden on people, extra cost burden on people who live in town, who have these responsibilities that people out of town don't have, who've come into town to use the facilities that you're asking us to pay for.
That's in every town, though.
Well, I understand it's in every town, but I think that's what Jimmy was getting, and I'm not making a, John, I'm not making a complaint about it, I'm just saying I think that's what John was actually trying to say about the people in the committee have to understand that the tax burden, the extra cost burden that you're putting on us because we moved into town, you mean, and didn't move out of town?
I think it's a valid
So
point.
that's-
You know, I would
I
say as a
understand
homeowner
everybody's issue.
up in the hills, I would love sidewalks all the way up there. And I would love the town to support that. That would be about, a $10 million thing, because who wants sidewalks up there?
We are not doing that.
But but I'm just saying, it's a valid point.
Let's make this perfectly clear. Won't be happening.
That's what the airline trail's for.
Well,
Back up
what
the
do you think?
streets.
One more?
The people in the woods to walk.
For the public, and you people in here, that, I attended the sidewalk committee meeting a week or two ago. And, it was pretty interesting. We were the only two, people that weren't on the committee there, I believe. And, sidewalk committee, the majority of the committee, and it just jumped up, by all means, along with the sidewalk. Okay, I totally, in my own mind disagreed, but kept it to myself. Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, if you ever shopped around for homeowners insurance, but one of the questions they ask is, how close is the nearest fire hydrant? Is the fire department in your town a paid or a volunteer fire department, and how close is the nearest firehouse? A new question coming out is, do you have a public sidewalk going along in front of your property? Why is that? Well, there's a chance of a lawsuit, more of a chance of a lawsuit, this and that, and you're paying a higher premium. There's that's number one. Number two, there's nothing worse than getting home on a Monday or Tuesday night after an all-day snowstorm, after you have to trudge home in the traffic, and you shovel your driveway, and you shovel your sidewalk, and get up on Tuesday morning to go out, and the plow is made at 3 o'clock in the morning round, and your sidewalk is all full of snow again. There's nothing enjoyable in my mind about owning property on a sidewalk. And unfortunately I do. I don't think I would do it again. So there are pros and cons. I mean, it's lovely to see the kids on Halloween going by. It's lovely to see them walking by. By law, they don't belong, nobody belongs with their bicycles on the sidewalk, or roller skates, or a skateboard.
Actually, that's not correct in Portland, actually. You can be, it might be wrong, unless it's been changed, but you can actually be on a bike.
I don't think so. I think there's a state law that mandates that the bicycle is supposed to follow the rules of a vehicle on the road.
John works for Department of Motor Vehicles.
Yeah, on the complete street, I'll double bump.
But that wouldn't, Bob, that wouldn't, Main Street sidewalks wouldn't count on that, because we don't have jurisdiction over those, would be the state.
But
So,
I think, didn't we, a few years back, when skateboards and rollerblades were going crazy, didn't we make an ordinance about none of them on the sidewalk?
They're not supposed to be. I remember
So
that.
sidewalks are basically a path for the pedestrian who is walking, or maybe in a wheelchair at the most. Those probably should be the only wheels that are on a sidewalk, is a wheelchair. Or a motorized scooter for the handicapped. Not a bicycle, not a skateboard, it's not the playground, it's not for hopscotch, it's a place for pedestrians to get from point A to point B. So this beautiful vision of having Mayberry in downtown Portland, you know, with Barney Fife and Andy and all the kids playing, you know, games on the hopscotch on the sidewalk, it's not real, because it's not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be to walk to get from point A to point B.
We have another comment in a minute.
And that's, we gotta take that into consideration. And we do have the problem, just like he said with the dog, or she said with the dogs coming through, and the people with dogs have no respect for our plants, our grass, our shrubs. It's the last one meeting we talked before. Now they're at the point where they take their little blue bag with their prize in it, which they should be carrying home and disposing themselves, and they're dropping it in the catch basins. It's, I mean, people are rude. We're not living in the 1950s and 60s where people were wonderful. I mean, and you love to see your neighbors, and you love to see your relatives and your neighbors. It's not, I don't know what happened to mankind, but it's not beautiful, wonderful.
That's another subject.
Yeah. But anyways, long story short, when they ask that question, do you have a public sidewalk in front of your house and your premium is higher? That's something to think about.
Good point. Victoria?
I don't wanna, Victoria Short, 64 High Street, kids' backyard at Brisbane. I don't wanna start something, but I just wanna make the point that I speak up because not everyone agrees with that particular position about what sidewalks are for.
I'm just telling you the law. Cause I know.
Well, that's.
We don't argue back and forth, because
Yeah.
I think somebody's feelings got hurt earlier because of that, so.
Yeah, no, I
It's
just,
okay. I don't want your feelings to get hurt.
I don't feel that way about kids or dogs, or chalk or bicycles.
Yep, thank you.
All right.
Susie, Mary Nolan, 45 Third Street. How old is the law that people who own or people on sidewalks have to, how old, because you said it was old, and I.
Yeah, it is old.
People, you know, somebody said 50 years, I'm not sure.
20. I had glasses, here they are.
Let's see.
And what is your point, if it's 30 or 40 years?
Well, all right, let me just tell you that some of this, curb lines, the town shall establish curb lines, selectmen designate location of curb lines. That was an ordinance of May 9th, 1934. Town streets and highways, some of that was changed in 1988. quite a bit of it was 1988. Then there's a variance for construction of driveways. That ordinance was changed in 1997. So they haven't been changed recently.
My point is, you might need to revisit this, because obviously people have different opinions. It's old, and lots of things have changed. And everybody uses the sidewalks, not just people who live on Fairview Street or Main Street. And I live on Fairview, and the people across the street enjoy my sidewalk, looking at it and everything, but I'm full shoveling. So, and again, I know I bought that that's the gig, but I think, this is our tax discussion. And if it's an
You're
old
right.
law, maybe we need to revisit it.
There are a lot of aspects that I think the selectmen and the committee members who are here tonight learned. I think there's probably lots more, and I can tell you, trying to figure out and how to please everybody is going to be very challenging, very challenging. But try to be fair to everybody, and I know, because I do walk a lot of the streets, I do know many of you and those that have left do take care of your sidewalks. Whether it's repairing them or whether it's shoveling them and making sure they are safe. And we need to figure out how best to proceed. What we're doing is we're looking at different ordinances in other towns. We're not the first town to grapple with these problems and try to solve them. And there is some legal implications. And so we have worked with our attorneys, and I can tell you, even they don't agree. But liability is something that we take very seriously, and safety, and as I said, improvements in the quality of life in our neighborhoods is very important. Anything else that anyone else wanted to add tonight?
I would just like to thank everyone for coming out and staying till the very end. I'll give yourself one of those on the way out. And,
Thank you, Bob.
hopefully, I would hope as a resident here for, only since 2002, so I'm not a lifer, but hopefully will be. That this will spark on more dialogue for either more money or a different cost sharing to get even more sidewalks, greater safety, greater access for all of us, not just the kids. So thanks for coming out.
We're gonna close this public hearing, not to say that there won't be more, because I think you've raised a lot of good questions.
The only thing I'd want to add is
Yes.
I think it's really important that everybody comes out, and I also think in the future we should have another public hearing on this with a couple of different ways to tackle this animal, because that's what it is. If we start replacing sidewalks at $1 million, I mean, Rick's not in the room, but I forgot, I think somebody threw around a number of 12 million to start fixing all of them. That's a lot of money. We have to. Rick, what would it cost?
$3.3 million, the board wanted me to look at doing the sidewalks within a half a mile radius of the school, which I did. And I believe the cost was $3.5 million.
Just
Just
for that.
Just
Just
a half
that.
mile, leaving good sidewalks and repairing.
So I don't want to make up a number, but long story short, I think property owners, number one, should be involved. Everybody should be involved, but at some point, we're going to have to make a decision. And I think the more input we get, the better the decision we're going to come up with. I don't believe anybody's made up their mind on what streets. They're all going to change now. We only have $1 million. Bob's got a lot of work. Like, I just came up with a suggestion where to shift it in the spot, and that'll save 200 feet or so. So there's a lot of things that there's going to be give and take. So we're here to listen. Thank you.
I did have one written comment, so I'll read it. It's from it says, "The Jonah Center for Earth and Art supports complete streets improvements in communities across Connecticut and our nation. To promote passive recreation, public health, neighbors knowing neighbors, exercise for school children, and community aesthetics, we work to facilitate sidewalk improvements and community tree planting efforts. Attractive, shady, safe, and well-connected sidewalks are key elements of a community's quality of life. Based on these values, the Jonah Center's Board of Directors expresses strong support for Portland's commitment and plans to repair and improve sidewalks in the high-density residential neighborhoods near Portland's Village Center. We also wish to express concern regarding possibility of sidewalk removals in the neighborhood, especially along East Main Street and Freestone Avenue. Obviously, wishes and needs of residents of those streets should be seriously considered. We don't presume our voice would compare in weight to the voices of those whose lives and homes are directly affected. Sidewalk removals, however, would have implications for people who live elsewhere and for the town as a whole in terms of appearance and appeal to visitors and prospective new residents. Removing sidewalks where residents have had them for years would seem to be a step backward from the direction we wish to recommend. Actions taken by Portland have an impact on the culture of our region. The culture we wish to promote is one that values sidewalks along residential, tree-lined streets, because sidewalks provide attractive pedestrian options and, quote, loop routes, end quote, that encourage walking for children and adults. Such facilities spread out all over Connecticut provide significant benefits to the entire state. We applaud the town for care and caution, which is something I think we will take as we proceed. This is signed by John Hall, who is a member of the committee, lives on Main Street, as well as on behalf of the members of the Jonas Center for Earth and Art, which is a Middletown group committed to these types of improvements. With that, I'll close. Is there any other comments?
Yeah, just
Yes.
in the past, public comment was supposed to be for residents only or
Well,
property
he
owners.
lives in Portland.
Correct, but he, representing another firm outside of town.
Do you want me to withdraw it?
No,
I think
I
it's-
just want to make sure we're putting that on the record that it's an out-of-town entity, and I think,
Good
I
point.
respect.
Good point.
The author is more than welcome to sign his own letter and make his own
He
suggestions.
does live in town, yes, and
Correct.
so do other members of the. And we do accept comments from other people who don't live in town. In fact, I believe there were some people here that own property but don't live in Portland. I had another, yes, Dave?
Just one quick thing to what he said. We should not put trees next to sidewalks. That's the whole situation. They got us in the place we're now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I understand that we're fixing sidewalks, but why are we gonna throw good money and then put trees next to them that are gonna break them all up?
We will proceed with care and caution. I think that is important. Good point, David. Anybody else? Any closing comments? 8:55. I guess we'll close it for tonight. Thank you, everybody. We'll take a brief break before we go into our next set of work. Thank you for putting up with all of it, because there's a lot to this. It's not there. Yes, yes. That was good. It was. Thank you to the committee. I know some members had to leave. There's one member left, I think. All right, we'll reconvene at 9:05 p.m. And the next item is public comment. Is there any public comment tonight? There'll be opportunity at the end of the meeting, too. Old business, Chatham Health District update, and Don Mitchell's here. Thank you for coming.
Certainly. You know, we should find something that we're thankful for every day, and I'm so thankful that I'm not in charge of sidewalks.
Oh, you didn't see the new memo, Don?
The health district is taking over the sidewalk.
It's a health issue. We're going to switch it over to the Chatham Health.
Thanks, Ben.
Ben, didn't you read that in Harvard Courage?
Welcome,
Anyway,
Don.
I'm just gonna give you a little brief update on Chatham Health District. It has been a year characterized by change. There's a lot of changes. I know you're all fully aware of everything going on at the state. Customer service has still been our primary goal, and we've been trying to make better linkages with our communities where we work. To that degree, I think we've had some success. We've had staff changes. Okay, can you hear me now? No.
Is the microphone not working?
Don, tap on it. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
That's for the people at home.
I just have no voice at this time of day, that's all. We've had some staff changes this year. We've had the Portland sanitarian, Danielle Holmes, has moved on to greener pastures. She got a more lucrative offer elsewhere. We were able to return the favor to another health district and steal one of their very able people. And that seems to be what happens within health departments these days. They're all the same cast of characters, we're just stealing from each other. But we have Kim Hamley with us now, and in Portland you've had Liz Davidson. Liz had been working in East Haddam for a number of years. She has a lot of seniority, a lot of experience, and she's been here for a while now. Our office manager this year became our bookkeeper. Our finances were being done by the town of East Hampton, and now we're on our own. And so we've transitioned to that, which is going to be a better situation for us in keeping track of our own finances. And we've also had a new administrative assistant to take some of the pressure off of Tina Lanzi, our office manager bookkeeper. And we've had a lot of compliments on her as being very friendly and helpful, and that's what we want to see. She is the face of the district when people come in the office. Financially, we've been fairly stable. Obviously, it's a very tumultuous time, but oddly enough, where the per capita funding from the state had been cut 2 years ago from, I forget the number, $1.80 to $1.64, and then we were under the impression we were going to $1.48, and we were thinking, how the heck do we absorb this? And then they turned around this year when we don't have a budget, and they fully funded it and sent us the check already. I just keep expecting any day a knock on the door, them saying, it was a mistake, we want it back. But right now, that came through. There are other programs that have changed. LEAD, we have a minor grant that we get each year for them to do prevention activities. They told us that was not going to happen anymore. That's done. Public health, emergency preparedness, we get a grant, and it's generally a 5-year grant. We've finished our 5-year period, so we're in a new grant period, and they said, oh, we're changing things. You're not going to really be in charge of your funding after this year. Well, you're not even really going to be in charge of it this year. We're going to give you money, but it's going to come through a fiduciary, and we're going to have the 5 emergency preparedness regions. They're going to have healthcare coalitions. It'll be a combination of people from health departments, hospitals, whatever. And the funding is going to go directly to those groups. We're in Region 3, and so our fiduciary is Capital Region Council of Governments. That's where our funding is coming through, but when that happens, we lost 10% of the money for that administratively. I think that's to be expected. The deliverables, they're not really sure. We're trying to finalize contracts, and we don't really have one. We've had a preparedness coordinator that we have to keep paying even though there's no funding that's in place. They promise it's coming, but I think the writing is on the wall on some of this. The healthcare coalitions now with the 5 planning regions, emergency planning regions, I don't know if you heard about this past year, the state health department was talking about getting down to 6 or 8 districts for the whole state. We had 70-something health departments, including the tribal nations, and they wanted to cut that number down to maybe 8, 9 at the most. Well, it was opposed by most groups. I believe CCM and others had all come out to say, you know, this has just kind of been dumped here, and it's not really thought out. And it didn't come to be, but it makes me question if perhaps this is going to happen through a back door. You identify these planning regions now, and making the funding go through the region, that's a way to start the process. So I'm not sure where that's going, but because it's so unstable in terms of staffing, our preparedness coordinator just came back from a conference and says, I've been offered a position at FEMA. So he's going to hang in and take care of a number of our deliverables, but he'll be deploying perhaps to Florida or Puerto Rico by mid-November. Other than that, in terms of some of the public health programs, the flu clinics, they're more numerous this year, smaller clinics. Flu clinics have been diminishing. Everybody said, well, you know, you can't compete. There's all these pharmacies now that are doing it. And that is true. We've seen numbers diminishing, but some of the clinics have actually kicked up because the pharmacies are not doing children, and our clinics can. So we're getting some of them in daycares and the like, and those are coming along. So we're gonna have to evaluate as we go through this to see what's working and what isn't. And I know we're all pretty much bombarded on a daily basis on the opioid crisis. And the question is, what do you do about it? Well, we've had some meetings. I was away when they had a meeting of Connecticut Association of Directors of Health, but one of my people went in my stead and got information there. It seems as though most health departments are looking at this as probably a public health education campaign. Education perhaps in the schools, maybe some forums. I went to another meeting and it was earlier this week, it was actually Monday. It was Connecticut Association of Addiction Professionals. And that was quite a different meeting. And to have the people that are actually doing the casework, and we had a representative there from Middlesex Family Practice also, who's had 26 years of experience, has helped people get off of opioids, but also, as he stated, the medical profession is a large part of the problem, why these people have been addicted to begin with. And again, it's a lot of, they've always been there to help people eliminate pain as a condition medically, but you know, in doing so, they've led to addiction. So at that meeting, I asked point blank, because there were so many good professionals there, we're a local health department. We know we could raise awareness. We know we could go to schools. We know we could have forums. Is that the role that you see a local health department taking? And they were like so happy we were there, but then in the next breath said, yes and no. I said, well, what do you mean by that? And they said, yes, we want you on board. We want you to do things. We want you to join us. We want you to continue to talk to us. But if you have forums or if you have meetings and you don't have good, strong referrals to give, you're doing a disservice, because you could lure somebody in for help and then cut them off. So they had some suggestions, and we're working right now. My health educator has reached out to the prevention councils in our towns. We'd like to have a meeting with them, and we will be meeting with our medical advisor, Dr. Beebe from Middlesex, and we're going to try to see where we fit into being some kind of help in this puzzle. We do hear from a lot of people that, okay, there's Narcan, it should be available, and there are various, I don't want to say interpretations, it's not interpretations, it's just some people say yes, it should be offered everywhere. Other people said no, let it stay with the pharmacies. There's also people that will do demonstrations on administering it. It's something administered nasally, a couple doses, half up one nostril, half up the other. But we're going to look at all of that, and we're going to do so. Our approach is going to be guided by evidence-based practice to see where we can best fit into this puzzle and be of some help. That said, are there any questions?
John, I had asked Susan to ask you to come just to give us an overview and also to talk a little bit about the opioid problem. Portland had a forum the other evening.
Where was that, Kitch?
It was held at the middle school library, and it was part of This Is Us Portland, and the topic for this meeting was the opioid problem. And there were two speakers, users, and had been addicted, had treatment, and had a couple more addiction problems. And their feeling was that it was basically because drugs were prescribed to them for a medical reason.
Right.
And then they became available and the addiction started. And at that meeting, there were a number of different brochures for resources to work with addiction, Connecticut Resource Center mostly. And I know that that group particularly is doing a great job. I'm a little concerned to hear you say that, you know, the health districts were looked at, yeah, we want you at the table, but no, we don't really want you involved, because I think one of the biggest things that came out of the meeting the other evening was that sometimes just having anybody that has a heightened awareness available to guide a person through a particularly tough time might be what that person needs at that time. Whether it be a friendly face, an acknowledgement that we know you're struggling, and you know, availing yourself. What can I do for you right now? What's one thing I could do for you right now? The other issue that I think, and then this is a personal issue, is that I do think the Narcan should be available at a greater level. Mary, our Director of Social Youth Services, getting now to be Social Services.
That in fact was the term that was used to describe her to me, and I said, oh, you mean Mary Pont?
Yeah, Mary Pont, who now is in charge of all services, you know, other than health, but for people who are in need, said that, you know, and it's true, that unless the Narcan is administered in an X amount of minutes, that we've missed an opportunity to save someone, and that doesn't always happen. And sadly, she acknowledged that families sometimes want to clean up a scene, so that when health personnel arrive, that everything looks good, and not looks good because of what happened, but looks good because maybe my house was messy, and when help's coming. And you know, I think it sounded weird when she said it, but if you think about it, we do think about that. We think about, here's an emergency in front of us, but if somebody has to come into my house, oh my God, my house is a mess, what can I do? So I guess, how do we begin to advocate for more Narcan available? I mean, how difficult does it become to administer? Who can be trained to administer? You know, maybe at our school settings, maybe at a gym, you know, at any place where we might find somebody who is near death.
It does need to be more available, and I think virtually anybody can administer it. My question was, is there a downside? Is if the person isn't suffering from an opioid intoxication, are we going to do any harm? And they said no.
No, that's my take on this too, is that there's no harm done.
Right. So it is something we'll explore, because you know, whether we'll have it some at the health department for families that maybe are embarrassed to go to a pharmacy.
Right.
You know, we're going to look at that, and we're also going to look at, you know, what should be the setting in the schools. But we do have to get, you know, Mary and all these people at the table. And one thing I see is, I guess I see it as a missed opportunity for us. This happened at the schools, and I was completely unaware of it. While I'm waiting tonight, I'm looking out there. There's one next week
Tuesday
here.
Yeah.
I'm completely unaware of it. So it means that our community isn't connecting to their health department. And that to me is a problem. So
So how would you like that to happen, so that you would know, other than reading it in the River East?
Or on a poster.
Because Dr. Sachs coming here next week has been in the River East, I believe, twice already, and I'm sure it's going to be in this Friday again.
Sure. I think I just want to make sure, like with the library staff themselves, that they're aware. You do have a local health department. And if you're talking about an issue that has a bearing on health, you know, and you want to put on a program, if you would touch base with us, we can either say, you know, here's another idea, something we can add or something we can help with. If we can't do anything, it's just great for us to have the awareness, so that if we get contacted by somebody, we can say, hey, there's going to be a program at the Portland Library. But we don't have that information. We don't have that connection.
So we're not
that we
connected
need.
well enough right now.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's where I'm talking about. We need to get better integrated into our communities. And that's happening at various events and the like, but we needed within the Chatham Health District a certain level of stability. I think we've achieved that level of stability where we can start doing more this way.
So now it seems to be the next step would be a greater level of presence.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So I guess maybe somebody could come Tuesday night, or, you know, I think as we look forward at what this could could potentially be. Obviously, we're looking in some respects as epidemic now.
Absolutely. I mean,
And I think the publicity sometimes actually makes some people say, you know, what is this high? What is this that makes so many people want and need opioids? And I understand the medical portion of it and the fact that we have prescribers and that Big Pharma's made a lot of money on this. But the addiction piece of it gets mixed up and the habits that come out of it, the negative lifestyle, the incarcerations that we listened to last night, young people incarcerated because they were making terrible choices so they could have drugs. I think the education piece has to be real. One of the speakers that we had Tuesday evening, was a very young woman who started to use early on and was sure, and the phrase she used over and over again was, "I got it." She knew that she could stop at any moment. And in fact, she couldn't. She has now, and for this period of time. But I think that if we could do things together, maybe programs in our high school that are not just community-based, but are geared toward high school
Right.
kids, or young adults who are still trying to find their way, and, you know, and you know, people talk about gateway drugs versus, you know,
Right.
hard habits. She didn't seem to talk about gateways. They implied that because they had opioids for a prescription purpose, they were led into an addiction. And I think this becomes a problem for all of us because of their because of the ongoing behaviors of addicted people. So.
Well, it's one of the things that you see here, 2 times, heroin use has more than doubled in our young adults, 18 to 25, in the past decade. And 9 in 10 people who used heroin also used at least one other drug. And 45% of the people who used heroin were addicted to prescription opioids. And then they had a whole other fact sheet that alcohol, you're talking about your gateway drugs. If you're an alcohol user, if you're addicted to alcohol, you're 2 times as likely to use heroin. Marijuana, 3 times more likely. Cocaine, 15 times more likely. Opioid painkillers, 40 times more likely.
Right.
It's huge.
Because that's the heart of the brain.
And what we did here at that meeting in Meriden on Monday was that 3 to 5% of the population is very susceptible to addiction. 95% is not. But for those 3 to 5, it's really difficult. And for doctors to have the proper conversations, the doctor from Middlesex said when somebody asks for a refill on a prescription that maybe they didn't even write, maybe they had a surgery, they have a whole sheet of things they have to go through now before they'll even consider renewing that prescription.
So that's good.
It is. So there's
that's
more
the
being done
beginning.
that way. But in terms of like next week, I agree with you. We should have presence. Only reason I'm not going to commit to being present on that particular day is that I really feel that we need to have this. I do. Never have me out past 8 o'clock at night, I'm sorry. We need to know what our stance is going to be, and I want it within the broader community of the professionals that are going to offer help before we start standing up and saying this is what we're about and what we're going to do for this problem. I took it very seriously when they said, be sure you have the right places to refer people to before you start doing anything.
Okay, so could you just kind of give me what you think, or give to us a time frame when you think that might be in place?
Yep, we're working at having a meeting with all of the Prevention Council people within the next 2 weeks.
Okay, great.
And so we're looking at that, and then we want to work with our medical advisor, Dr. Kenabeebe, make sure he's on board. In fact, this other doctor from Middlesex says, I'm your medical advisor's boss. Get your money's worth, put him to work. So we're going to
Okay,
So-
that sounds good.
yeah. So we're gonna go at it diligently. Sometimes it's kind of a hopeless feeling, you're like, what can we really do? It's not necessarily what health departments have done, but we kinda have to look at how bad a problem it is and say, we've gotta try to help. So, we will.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Don? Thank you, Don, it's very good
Like
to
to make-
have you.
I'd like to make a comment, if I could.
We don't usually have comment
Well, just-
in the middle, but I will
Oh,
allow it.
it'll be, it's kind of a question or a statement, that I think that, only because I've been there, the families of an addict, there should be more for them, because a lot of times they don't understand the addiction, they don't understand the drug, they don't understand what's happening to their child, and they need an education, because a lot of times what they're doing is they've got the child at home and they're enabling their child to go further. And they don't know where to turn, they don't know what to look for, you know, they send their kid over to Rushford or to wherever, and the kid comes home and, oh, yeah, I'm doing good, dad, or I'm doing good, mom, or whatever.
Right.
And the whole time they're not cleaned up, and the parents don't know what to look for, they don't know the signs.
And they need to know that, and they also need to have the availability of Narcan, because they may
Right.
come across that child at home being unresponsive and need to act.
So if you had the forms and readings for these people, you know, it seems like we don't go looking for the help until we have the problem.
Right.
So if you suspect, if someone suspected they had a problem, and like say there was an Al-Anon meeting, like they have Al-Anon for, you know, for the families of alcoholics or whatever, if they had that type of meeting and they were teaching you, and we're gonna teach you how to use Narcan, where to get Narcan, what to look for if you think your kid is using it again, or a loved one, and what to do and what not to do. I mean, don't give them money. I mean, if you see stuff that disappeared in your house, or your lawnmower's missing, and went to the pawn shop, call the cops and have them arrested. You can visit your kid in jail, you can't visit them in the cemetery.
Right, and I mean, I've looked into some of the Dropbox information, and I didn't see Portland listed, so I was at the Portland PD the other day, and I said, have you guys thought about having a Dropbox? And they said, turn around, and I went,
We
oh,
have a
yeah.
Dropbox.
That's cool. So they don't have them all listed at the
No.
state, they don't know all of them that are there.
Hasn't, that just came out, yeah.
Yeah, so that, I was really pleased to see
That's
that,
what we do.
and you're right, the question I asked was, what's our target age? When should we be talking to these kids? And the official response was, well, most of these kids are getting addicted at age 14. And then a whole bunch of the professionals came up to me and said, start earlier than that. So.
Thank you
that's
very
it.
much, John.
All right.
Thank you very much. The next item is proposed stormwater ordinance. No one came to the meeting on that. We had a public hearing at 6:30, and there was no attendance, so I don't have any input for you. I don't know that you want to take any action tonight. Our attorney hasn't reviewed that ordinance. Should you have some comments, if you would please send them to me, and I will then share them with the rest of the board. Thanks again, Tom. Okay. Sidewalk matters. I'll open it up for the board.
I thought the public hearing was very instructive. It was actually good to see that, you know, when you have to take more seats out to get public comment, that's always a good thing. We have obviously a little bit more work to do. I think the sidewalk committee's got more work to do. And, we're gonna have to see exactly what we can do. What I took out of that comment as some of the main themes were, people did not wanna see sidewalks removed where they were established in a neighborhood. By and large, a few did. And a lot of folks were definitely upset if they had invested over the years in replacing their own, about the thought that that would be done differently for other folks going forward who maybe had not been staying on top of it, so. It's gonna be interesting.
Anyone else?
I thought it was a great meeting. I think we got to hear truly what the residents feel about their sidewalks. I agree with Jim that it needs to go back to the committee. And the committee needs to take a look and listen at what was discussed this evening. I think that, I agree that we heard over and over again, the people who have sidewalks pretty much want to keep their sidewalks. They'd like not to shovel them, but they'd like to keep their sidewalks. And I think, for me, it's a public safety issue, where we have them. Is there safe access to buses, just crossing streets. I didn't realize that we had so many curb issues, that curbs were too short, not there, crumbling. So I think it takes a broader look. But I think the biggest thing that we have to do is look at the sidewalk ordinance and what it means right now as it stands and what it means in the future and how it needs to be adjusted. And I took to heart your comments that there will be a new board sitting here, a board of selectmen, and it's going to be a rough period of time. But if bidding out for the sidewalks is going to be in January, then this needs to be done sooner rather than later. And it is a lot of work that has to be accomplished. But there was great engagement tonight, and I think that bodes well for us as we move forward.
Thank you. I agree. This end of the table.
I think it was great to see that many people from the public came out. Unfortunately, we only have $1 million to fix a lot of sidewalks. I can feel for all the people that have already paid for their sidewalks, so they don't think it's fair. I think a lot of people mentioned that tonight. I think it's a big deal. We have to try to connect these sidewalks. We do have the $1 million, and we have to spend it wisely. So I think we're going to have to look at everything in the future, and there's going to be more meetings on it, and I think it's great, and hopefully we get a turnout like that again.
I will say that the committee had asked, and we did send the public hearing notice to all the property owners on these streets.
Great idea.
But it worked. They came out.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's what's important. We're here to do what the residents want us to do, and at the end of the day, they're gonna have a big decision to make. Things like, if there is a cost involved, Rick, what's a running foot cost?
$85 to $100 a foot.
And if somebody owns a 100-foot property and all of a sudden they may have an $8,500 to $10,000 bill, things may change. All of these things need to be put on the table, and the public needs to hear about it. The public needs to tell us what they'd like us to do. Because that's a lot of money.
We'll be talking about it again, for sure. I heard some contradictory statements as well. So I think we're going to have to engage people more.
Yeah.
And there may need to be some mechanism by which this board determines what it is people want, because this is their money, after all. And how are we going to administer this program? So I suspect each of you will get more comments from either people that were here or people that hear about it, and I think that'll be helpful to you to then give direction to my office so that we can proceed to try to come up with a better ordinance. So if you have some thoughts after, be happy to try to incorporate them.
And if there's a way to put it to a vote or a referendum to let especially the people that have the sidewalks.
Right.
Gentleman in the audience mentioned, having more people on the board that actually have sidewalks and can give input, that's a great idea. So I think it's important to get the information out there.
Very good. Okay. Move on to the next topic, which is appointments to boards and commissions. Are there any appointments tonight?
I don't have any.
No appointments tonight. We'll move on to new business, and it's the driveway sidewalk ordinance appeal on Summer Street. The owner is John Jarzabek, and Mr. Jarzabek has addressed the board before, and I'm going to read into the record his letter to us, and it was his direction to send to my office, as per the ordinance, a request to come before you. And then we scheduled it for tonight, and I had shared with the selectmen already, John, your letter. So, but for the record, I'm going to read it. I'm requesting a variance from specifications concerning the construction of my driveway at 216 Summer Street, Portland, Connecticut. The original site plan approved by the zoning commission required a concrete sidewalk 4 feet wide through the width of my driveway, about 6 feet off of the street's edge. I fulfilled the requirement and used asphalt for the remaining driveway and apron. I have very little pitch on the driveway from my garage to the street's edge. In winter, water seeps between the asphalt driveway and concrete sidewalk at its seams. In time, The asphalt heaved and cracked. The winter chemicals and salt carried onto the driveway from vehicles also caused severe deterioration to the cement sidewalk. I wish to replace the driveway, eliminating the concrete sidewalk. This will remove any seams where water will seep in, and asphalt is not affected by winter chemicals and salt carried onto the driveway by vehicles. The driveway will last longer and be less dangerous to pedestrians rather than walking over cracked and uneven concrete. Future replacement or repair would be far less invasive. If any questions, I can be reached, and there's a phone number written here. Thank you for your consideration, and it's signed John Jarzabek, 216 Summer Street, Portland, Connecticut. So, this is the first time we've had anyone, in my remembrance, to come before us for a driveway variance. So I just wanted to remind the board that in keeping with the current ordinance, Mr. Jarzabek respectfully came in and spoke with Richard Kelsey, our Director of Public Works, and Richard essentially said no because of compliance with the ordinance that you have in front of you. And so John, as was his right, he came and asked me, because Rick had recommended that he ask my office, and I supported Richard Kelsey in terms of the implementation of the ordinance. And that's something that is my job, that is Rick's job. We are told by the board how to implement ordinances, so we will uphold the ordinance. Now, in the ordinance, as Rick pointed out, there is the ability for the homeowner or the resident owner to come to this board and ask the board for a variance. So I just want to emphasize that I've said no, Rick said no, in accordance with the ordinance. So you're here to address the full board to see if they would allow a variance to the ordinance. And I don't know if had any comments, Rick, to that? If there was anything further you wanted to add?
Not specifically. I did speak with the town engineer and the ground supervisor, who are all somewhat familiar with sidewalks. And all three of us are inclined not to change the ordinance. That's not to say not to grant a variance, but if you're going to grant a variance, beware that you may be setting a precedent, unless there's some unusual case, and maybe John's unusual case is the flatness of his driveway, for example. So typically, I guess when you're gonna grant a variance, it should be a hardship per se for granting it. And like I say, it's certainly not the end of the world if John has a asphalt driveway, in his particular case. Personally, I'm not sure that's what I would do, but I know John well. I know how he keeps his properties. I know how he operates. John is, it's probably not a nicer place around. So John will be the one to keep his driveway in good repair, for example. The concerns, I think, that the town engineer, myself, and Carla, the feelings that we had is concrete is more durable than asphalt. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but that's our experience. So, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. John, did you want to say a few words?
Yeah, I could,
You can go to the microphone if you'd like, John. Thank you.
First off, I wondered, do I need legal counsel? Because according to the ordinance, I was supposed to get a letter from the Board of Selectmen here. It says it right there. I came in here tonight on my own, just hoping this was gonna happen. I didn't get any letter. So on this end, on your end, something wasn't upheld.
It is something new that we're doing, so we can do that. Certainly we can.
Okay. Well, I didn't get the letter, so if I didn't get, I might not even have been here tonight. I'm glad I took it upon myself to be here. And that's the first thing.
Okay.
Second off, I feel singled out. And I'll tell you why. I do have a hardship. I presented it in the letter. You'd almost have to see it. I wish we could go on a field trip, but we can't. It's dark. And it didn't work out. I mean, I feel I did the right job in the beginning when I built the house. I knew the sidewalk was there, and the first thing was, well, you were part of the Kelly subdivision, which was the condos on the street, which I really wasn't.
I mean, those 4 lots were not awarded to Kelly to build on, so they were sold separately. But in my plan, my approved site plan, Susan was right, it did say by the engineer that there had to be a concrete sidewalk. Class 3, C3? I don't remember, something about 3, I don't know what that means. I mean, because concrete doesn't have to necessarily be cement, it could be asphalt. It's called something, how do you say that word?
Bituminous concrete.
Right, which is just asphalt, but it is concrete. The definition of the word concrete is where you take an aggregate, you take something that binds it and holds it all together, and it forms a pavement. It doesn't necessarily have to be cement by definition. I got the dictionary there if anyone wants to
John,
know.
if I could just correct you real quick so we can get by that.
Go ahead.
Our ordinance specifies 6 inches of Connecticut DOT Class C concrete.
That's what it
with
said.
wire mesh.
Yep.
So they're talking about.
Cement, in that case, but I'm just saying.
No, just to.
So going back on this, going back to my engineer, who was Frank Magnotta, and I talked to him, and we talked about the situation as I addressed on September 5th when I was here, that the most important sidewalk to me is High Street. And that is a mixed match of cement and asphalt. And as new driveway permits were issued, they allowed, the town of Portland or somebody allowed them, if they got a permit, to pave right over or tear their sidewalk off and do asphalt. And then the town did the same thing. It's like, do as I say, not as I did. And the new driveway going into the water tanks up there next to the high school, it's asphalt to the roadside, and it's brand new concrete to the right of it and brand new concrete to the left of it. Now, I think there was either 26 or 28 properties from Anderson Feed to the Swedish Cemetery that did this. 3 by the town, the 2 schools, which I'll consider roads. I won't consider those driveways. So we'll let them have. But certainly the water tanks it should be a sidewalk if I've got to do it. Then we talked about the new medical building, and Susan's excuse for that was that's different. That's a commercial building. Well, in talking to Frank Magnotta says, I drew those plans. I drew that approved site plan. That medical building has the concrete sidewalk across the driveway. Went down and looked again to make sure I wasn't hallucinating, and there's no concrete sidewalk there. Went up into the building department, asked the people in the building department if I could see that, approved site plan, a stamped site plan. They finally showed it to me. I looked at it. The sidewalk's supposed to be there. I couldn't find any notes in that file that said it was excused. So, if a big project like that, and then we'll take Cumberland Farms, when the state of Connecticut or whoever had the gas line went through there, all the aprons along the old Cumberland Farms and all along 66 were all done in concrete and cement sidewalks. Cumberland Farms gets built, asphalt. Why? I mean, why am I being singled out? And I have a hardship. Now, I went one step further, and they were kind of saying of these sidewalks that go to nowhere on Summer Street, if you go down one end, it dumps into somebody's front yard who's not part of the condo association. And if you go off the other end, it dumps you into the most dangerous part of Summer Street it could, right where you come around the corner off of Bartlett Street when the foliage is on the trees, you get run over exiting there. I mean, I think the town has set themselves up for a lawsuit by making people, or encouraging people to exit where they're exiting. So I was told probably that the sidewalk was supposed to be there for the people of the condo association to intermingle amongst each other, and not necessarily for pedestrian traffic because it goes nowhere. So I took myself one step further and said, I know my neighbors pretty good, they know me. And I had a petition I drew up, and I went to most of my neighbors, not all of them, that own property on Summer Street, that are part of the Kelly subdivision or Summer Meadow Condo Association. There's 20 units, 10 houses, 2 units a house, 19 owners. I got as far as 15 of them. Nobody told me no. They read this, by all means, whatever you want to do, and gave it back to me. So no one who's involved in this directly has an objection. They realize that I have a hardship with the grade of my driveway. You do have 2 dissimilar materials. You have asphalt, you have cement. They expand and contract at a different rate, and sooner or later you get that gap that runs along it. In my case, the water runs from the garage. It's very little pitch. If I have 3 inches of pitch or 4 inches of pitch from the garage doors to the street, it's a lot. And it goes ever so slowly, and it can settle right in that crack. Now picture a January 16th night, when it's 30 degrees or 32 degrees during the day and it's wet, the water runs in there, and then it goes to 15 degrees at 3 o'clock in the morning. I get in my truck at 6 o'clock in the morning to leave. The frost, or the water, when it froze, pushed the asphalt up. I drove over it, pushed it back down, then it cracks. Now I got more cracks, more water going. So all I'm proposing is still gonna be a sidewalk. It's just gonna be a different color and a different material. And you know what? If in 5 years this doesn't hold up, I'll yank it back out again and do it again. I'm that type of guy. And it's not a financial thing. It's not a picturesque thing, what you think it'll look like, or what I think it's gonna look beautiful. I look at what goes on High Street going into the water tanks, there's not a better idea than the way they did that. I'm not saying to change that. Down at the new medical building, that is the right way to do it, in my opinion. Carl Molardo, that new driveway he's got next to Valley View School, it looks, I mean, when you look at that with the grass mowed, that blacktop and the defined sidewalk to the left and the right, it looks fine. I don't think there's anything degrading about it. And it is generally, it's a hardship here that I don't wanna replace everything again in another 5 or 7 years because of the same problem. And I don't want the sparring from the chemicals. Yeah, Susan had some solutions. Well, maybe you can buy this chemical, go down and talk to the guy who's doing the concrete work down in front of the junior high school. This has been going on since August, this problem. That's why my driveway's still not done. So I go down and talk to Seb from T&S Caminito down there. And yeah, there are sealers, in his broken English, he said, there's sealers that you can put on the sidewalk, but he says they're not foolproof. They'll prolong it for a while. But sooner or later, you're gonna get a nick in it, something's gonna get in there, a snowplow's gonna go across it, push it off, and you're gonna have the same deal. That's only half the problem, the salt and the chemicals on top. My biggest problem is the water getting between that and the asphalt. Well, you can caulk it. So you miss one little spot. Like that woman was just saying about her brownstone sidewalk. The water comes down and gets in there, and what do you got? You can't control water. This is the best, most logical solution is what I'm proposing. It's just straight through. I'll have a 4-foot seam over here against cement and a 4-foot seam over here. I won't have a 4-foot, a 4-foot, and 2 22-foot seams this way and this way. And if I do just a little swale in the driveway, just in the asphalt, that water will go right by, it won't even touch that seam on the right or the left. And you'll never know it going across it. I mean, if you were in a wheelchair or on roller skates or whatever, you'd never know. You wouldn't, if you were blind and you hit the bump, you wouldn't even know it. So I'm just asking you guys to do what's reasonable, you know?
Well, we can schedule, and I can write to you the date at which they can make this decision.
Well,
unless you
as
want
I
them
said
to
last
make-
September 5th when I was here,
Yeah.
the time is of the essence. I went to T&S
Sure.
Caminito and said, if I have to do this, can you do this for me? Geez, John, I'm busy, I'll let you know. And the driveway guy says when the sidewalk is done, he wants at least 2 weeks before he'll even touch it, because he doesn't want that sidewalk green. So we're in the middle of October now. So if you took up 2 weeks to tell me, now we're in November, if I get a sidewalk put in, there's another 2 weeks, I'm not gonna get asphalt put in by winter. I mean, if you really want it that bad, put it in. I'll dig it up, you put it in. I don't want it. I just don't, I don't think it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me in my situation. And I presented everything that I could present. I mean, I don't know if you wanna see this list of names of everybody that signed. And I really do, feel, I don't know if Lambros was here tonight and I get a kick out of him, but he wrote an article to the River East this past Friday, and it had to do with you, Susan. And basically what it says is he's doing his campaign up at the landfill, which, hey, what better place to do it, you know, there is a supermarket. But long story short, he says, you know, someone goes to Susan with a problem and they get passed around, and that's the way I feel. Back and forth, passed around, this way, go see what TNS has to say, go see what Rick has to say. Oh, we got Ashley Mezarowski, go talk to her. I talked to her, she's gonna call me back, I never got a call back. I mean, I've just been going, pull, tug, this way, that way. And as I say, I feel alone, I feel like I'm singled out. When all this is going on up High Street, and now you're telling me, no, I can't do it. I feel that, you know what? I should've just done it, and not asked for permission, not gone for a permit. And I would be so far better off. I'd have far less gray hair. You know, it's stressful. And this makes sense. This is what bothers me the most, is this makes sense.
How wide's your property, John?
How wide is my property?
That lot?
What, the vacant lot?
No, I wanna know where your house is, how wide that lot is.
Probably, I think it's probably 120 feet.
All right, and you said the driveway's 22 feet, and you're proposing no sidewalk just in the driveway
Just
area?
in the 22 feet. And I did that whole sidewalk when I built the house, because it was all cracked from when Kelly put it in. I did it all brand new in front of the house, including the driveway. And it just, if it held up, I wouldn't be here. I don't wanna tear my driveway up for no reason, or my sidewalk. And it's unsightly. It's If it's not practical and it doesn't work.
I just think it's important to point out that when you came to the Director of Public Works and to me,
Yeah.
you asked for something that is not in the ordinance.
Well,
And
first off, I didn't.
Let
can I
me just,
interrupt?
let
Can
me
I
just.
interrupt? I didn't know that there
Finish.
was an ordinance. What
Okay.
I did is I walked
But
in to get a
Rick-
permit.
Rick is the person that,
I walked up to Rick and asked, told him that I was tearing my driveway up and
Yep.
was gonna need a permit to put a new one in.
Yep.
And I said, I don't wanna do the sidewalk. Whoa, geez, I don't know if I can do that. What do you mean? Let me think about this and I'll get back to you. We're about his words, I don't know if they were exact words. A day or so later, I got a phone call from him and says, geez, I talked to Susan and, no way, John, you're not gonna do this. So I says, well, what can I tell you, you know? Well, geez, maybe I can talk to Susan. Maybe you should go do that, he said. So then I came and talked to you. And basically what you told me is, I gotta stand by what my public works director says.
yeah, that is the way we
And that's what you said.
conduct business.
And at that point, when you said that, then you went on your computer and you said, geez, there's sealers for concrete, there's this, why don't you go talk to this guy?
Yeah.
Which I did. I told you, if I come back, you're sending me on a wild goose chase, Susan, and I come back with all the answers, what are you gonna tell me? You didn't, you gave me kind of a stupid look when, and then I said, Susan.
Well, I don't agree with what you're
Well, let me
saying,
finish.
but you can say it,
And I
okay?
said, Susan, what are you gonna tell me? She said, you know what, I'm not gonna tell you anything until I go back and talk to my public works director. And that's what you told me. So I went on that wild goose chase, and you talked to your public works director, and you said no. And then I called back and said, I can't believe that this is Putin in Portland, and there's gotta be a way to get around this, or whatever, figure this out. At that point, you had something that you said I could pick up, and you showed me a copy of a site plan approval, a stamped one that's not actually mine, it was something else. And some interdepartmental memo from the engineer to another guy that I never saw. It said my sidewalk had to be 8 inches above, across the driveway, not 6 for a mistake that was on the print.
Yep.
And it wasn't my print. So long story short, after that, and I told you that it wasn't mine, I said, there's still something we can do here, there's gotta be somewhere we can go. You sent me to Ashley. Ashley was gonna get back to me, and then miraculously after Ashley, then this other piece of paper appears, we're gonna go down this road. Now, we've agreed we're going down this road. So, you said you want me to email it, you a copy of this. I said, no, I'm not available, I can't do that. I said, my girlfriend will be down tomorrow to pick it up. So my girlfriend goes down on Friday knowing that it is a 12 o'clock day, and your secretary knows nothing about this. So she comes home mad as a hornet, and says, geez, you sent me on a wild goose chase again. I says, well, I'm sorry, it's not me. That's what I was told. So I got on Monday, and sure enough, the envelope was there. I apologized for Michelle in case my girlfriend was rude to her. No, she wasn't rude to you. I know she can get short-tempered sometimes. And I got it home, and I wrote the letter, I composed the letter and wrote it and had it back to her, I think in an hour and a half. Geez, that was fast. I said, this is time sensitive. I said, I gotta get this done. And I really feel pulled, jerked, stroked around. I mean, how would you feel? I pretty much explained it. And I don't think it's fair. I don't think, what happened at the medical center down there? Who was watching the store? If that place was supposed to have a sidewalk, why isn't it there? You had at least 4 people sign off on the CO. The building inspector, the director of public works, the engineer, and Deanna should have signed off on that. How did all 4 of them miss that? Unless there's something in the file I didn't see, and if I did, I'm sorry. But how did that get missed? And now I've got a hardship, and I'm fighting tooth and nail. And like I said, everyone read this little thing that you said is brand new. Did anybody not read that I was supposed to get a letter to tell me to be here tonight?
They don't have to make a decision tonight. But I would hope that, after your presentation, they can, but we don't, if you object.
If your whole thing on this sidewalk, as far as I'm concerned, is appearance, you don't care what it's made of. You want it to match. You want the ribbon-type sidewalk that just meanders down here. And the appearance part of it is not the practical part of it, in my opinion. I mean, you're not the one that's gonna tear it up again in 5 years when this happens again. It's gonna be me if I'm still living here, or the guy that comes after me. And we can't always go for the Mayberry look. Sometimes we gotta do the practical thing, and I think it's gonna look fine. If I thought it was gonna look bad, I'd come up with something different.
I think it's important too for this board to realize that when you, look at all of the issues that we talked about a few minutes ago, in terms of how you're going to construct sidewalks. Are you going to construct sidewalks all along, as is in the ordinance, or are you going to have some cases driveways and some cases the sidewalks? I mean, these are issues that
Mhm.
this board has not dealt with, effectively for a long time. And we are trying to get better at it, and we are trying to become more consistent and fair.
And I really
with
appreciate
this.
that, but I just don't wanna, I don't wanna be the guy who instigated all this and be on the bad end of the stick.
Well, hang on. You can use the word instigated, and I take it as, in this situation, a good thing. And I'll give you an example where I'm thinking. Main Street, for example, a lot of the broken sidewalks, which we don't even know if we wanna own or not own or whatever, are where the driveways are. There's large trucks that go over it, large vehicles. I don't think it looks bad if we decide as a group that driveways are driveways and sidewalks are sidewalks. And you're right, mixing those is more problematic than not. In your case, 22 feet out of 122, about a sixth of the property. So on Main Street, for example, a sixth or a fifth of the overall cost that could be eventually a burden on everybody could be eliminated if driveways are allowed to be driveways. That's a big deal, especially if we're not gonna take on the animal of redoing all the sidewalks on Main Street, which we're not gonna be able to afford to do. The reality is a lot of the bad areas are right where the driveways are. So if we then do start going down the path of driveways are driveways, guys, it's gonna look great, and it will. That's getting with the times. So when you say you might be the guy opening this up, you know what, good for you. Because maybe it is time to talk about it. This is a big deal if we're taking on all the sidewalks in Portland. And there are certain cases where it is great to have continuous sidewalks, I agree, but then there's places that aren't, especially on a road we're not even sure we wanna take on the liability of. So I personally, I like the idea of a driveway on Main Street being a driveway and sidewalks on each side, and that's what I'd like to see. And that would lessen possibly a fifth of the town's future liability, which we can't even afford a tenth, let alone a fifth.
Well, I'd like to ask one more question. I mean, I probably not Susan. I know Ben, you, Jim, I don't know about you, Rick Kelsey. I mean, some of these sidewalks, you've been on, behind the wheel of a snowplow in the wintertime. The first thing that happens, you drop your plow and you go in and out and it catches on that sidewalk, boom, it trips the blade. I mean, and then you chip the sidewalk, you've opened something up, you've made a crack. I mean, it's just, it makes no sense. In my situation, it makes no sense. If I didn't have the water issue, if I had to pitch where the water would go a different way, I think I would be fine. But I've got the water issue. And I can't make the house higher now. I think that's the biggest hardship that I have. The water just does not flow.
No, and I think the important thing, Rick brought it up, I think the important thing is, if this board doesn't wanna go down the road of setting a precedence, I served as the chairman of the ZBA for many years, I was on the ZBA for probably 12 years, you had to prove a hardship. You have a hardship. Having said that, I still think it's a better way, and in the future, we should relook at how we do driveways and allow driveways to be driveways. It makes more sense to have compatible materials when you're running vehicles in and out, in my opinion, and especially in New England, you need to maintain them. So I think we can vote tonight.
I think the other thing.
I think though, I did, having seen the letter, I did a little bit of driving around. And I understand what you're saying, like High Street, definitely on the lower end of High Street towards Cumberland Farms, there definitely seems to be, we had a lot of older houses. I think that part of the issue may have been there that you had some driveways that were in place before the highway, before the sidewalks were put in place was, when we were talking about it. But I also went up and I took a look at Paley Farms, which, has a lot of flat driveways. I was trying to look at things that were somewhat comparable.
Yep.
And try to understand where the differences were. And one of the things I looked at is those that I think are between 20 and 30 years old in that development. The
That would be
side-
about 87, 88.
I think it was approved in 87, 88, I don't know when all the houses got
Yep.
built, if it was in phases or whatnot. And one of the things I looked at is where you could see where you could see the asphalt, you get the rise, the heaving and the asphalt, but the sidewalks themselves were level going across. Very few instances where you saw an individual panel of the sidewalk that was popped, right?
Go down Summer Street and look.
I'm talking about trying to look at something that was comparable and
Right.
something that was 30 years old, right? So trying to understand, and I also drove around town. There are other places you drive around, you can definitely see the concrete's heaved, and it's, a lot, especially when you have trees and roots, and a lot of that stuff really played havoc with it. So I was also looking at, as a material, right? Concrete it is a stronger material. I was trying to look at it in terms of pedestrian pathways going across. I was actually glad you said that. One of the concerns I had is that, yes, you get rid of the seam that's a 22-foot long seam, they can let water, and I know that can have an impact on the driveway. But that's the seam the vehicle drives over, versus if you have the 4-foot seam on either side of the asphalt, you have concrete, and then you have the 4-foot seam across, that's where the pedestrian's walking across. So it's very important to keep that level in terms of people walking. So I had a slightly different pitch. I'm not sure yet that we want, as a wholesale basis, say we want to go to asphalt. I don't think it's as necessarily as good of a material. I look at some of the work that's been done, that had been even across the street, and with, the basing. I think one of the things you said in here last time is that you acknowledged the contractor, there was some issues with how it got done. When I drove that street, I noticed that almost all the concrete, when people driving across it, had cracked. There were several places where you could see there were patches, and it was different colors and mismatched.
Which street?
Your street, Summer Street.
Yeah.
I went down into, because I believe you're the house that has, from where the sidewalk would be in is basically gravel right now, right?
Yep.
Okay. Was showing me there was something that went on in that street, but then when I go up to Paley Farms, I see all these other flat driveways that didn't have this issue, that they were done. You could definitely see with the chemicals you had some of the stone, coming, and you could see that visible, but the sidewalks themselves were still level and very usable. So I was trying to understand what the difference is, and that's one of the things I know I'd like to understand before we set, precedent. And I know time's of the essence, but I do worry about, where we're gonna go and what we're gonna do. I'm also still not sold on the fact that we're gonna take ownership of all the sidewalks in Portland, Ben. So, I understand the issue, because we wanna be just as prudent with taxpayers when they're doing the work as when we're doing it, but. So I still have some concerns over that, about how we're gonna set it. Your situation is a little bit unique, because it's basically a sidewalk that goes from a roadway to
The front yard.
a front yard. So it's not a very connected neighborhood at this point.
Well, and the excuse that I got off of that when I brought that up the first time was that the opinion or what they thought was, and I think this came from Susan, don't quote me on that, was that they think maybe the sidewalk was created for the people, the residents of the condo association or the Kelly subdivision to intermingle among each other. In which case, that's where I went and had these people. I didn't get 100% of them. There's 19 owners there, and I got 15. The sign that said, "We know you, John. We know how you'll keep it. We're not worried about it." And there was not one no. On my son's soul, I did not walk up to one person that said, "I'm not signing that thing." You know what they said to me? What every one of them said to me, well, maybe not everyone, but 15, I would say that 13 out of 15 people told me, when we shook hands and closed, "Good luck." That's what they told me, "Good luck."
I just think it's important to point out, time is of the essence whenever it comes to paving. I don't think we should, no matter what the decision is, I do believe this board should make a decision on this variance tonight, and then there can be much more discussion on what to do in the future. I still think there's a value if we are taking on the animal, which maybe we're not.
I mean, if I have to put a bond up to make
Right,
sure that I
right.
keep the right and the left, so there's not, like what you said, that 4 foot with the people, I'll put it up. I have no problem with that. I don't, it's gotta stay there for 10 years. I get interest from TD Bank, where you put the bonds or you put whatever it is. If I had to do that so you guys could come down and say, "Hey, look at John, your asphalt dropped a 1/4 inch below over here. We gotta dig that up and do something here."
No, I'm trying, I'll be honest with you, I am not, and I'm self-admittedly not a sidewalk expert. Right?
Neither am I.
So,
I know it.
I'm trying to understand the difference in terms of differences, why, basically what's causing the issue, why these were all cracked, like we had more cracking along in that neighborhood. Is there something different with, I don't know, the water, I don't know. I go to, like I said, when I went to Paley, that was instructive, and driving around town. I will also say that, yes, lower High Street, I definitely saw a lot of that asphalt. You drive pretty much anywhere else in town, it's fairly uniform. You get a few here and there, but it's fairly uniform.
Well, I wasn't so
That it's
concerned
concrete.
down the bottom of the High Street, because a lot of those are older homes.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff was done beforehand,
It's-
and there might have been asphalt where the sidewalk was, even before, it might have been 30 years ago, and then when they did it again, they just did it over again. I was more concerned with the medical building, number one, based on the print that I saw. I was more concerned with the driveway at the high school, or at the water tanks. That's recent, probably around the same time I put my driveway in, and you know what? That driveway is beautiful at the end, and where it meets the sidewalks is beautiful. Believe me. And then Attorney Cardella, I think his name is, his home.
Corella.
Corella, he has a new driveway, it eliminated it. Carl Lara lives next door in that brick ranch, he eliminated the sidewalk, and he even took some of his asphalt and went to the right where the concrete was. I mean, if these guys got permits to get a new driveway, and then, like I said, I believe that's the most important sidewalk in town, servicing 3 schools. Why all of a sudden me, who lives on Summer Street with the sidewalk to nowhere, and I have a hardship, why do I got such a big deal? That's, I mean, I don't know how to put it. I'm frustrated.
Well, I think it's also important to point out how good Cumberland Farms and the new medical building look. I'm proud of them as a resident of Portland. I think they both look good, and
I'm proud of the way that they held up with the
Yeah.
heavier trucks and stuff going in and out. And it worked.
I'm
Excuse me.
just, never mind, I'm just picturing going in off High Street into Cumberland Farms. No, the sidewalk's not there, just be there.
This, I mean, it's a painted crosswalk. You want me to do that? I'll paint a crosswalk across there if you want.
No.
That's it. That's as much as I can tell you, other than I'm really aggravated.
We could tell.
No, you seem to be really aggravated. That would get- I have. Thanks for listening. You bet.
Am I allowed to make a motion, Susan?
You can do as you please. As he pointed out, this is informational. If you want to take a vote, it's certainly up to you. He asked that a letter be sent to him, which we can certainly do. I wanted to make sure that you know that you can do as you please, obviously. You are the selectman.
I thought
If
he
you wanted
asked.
to wait, you can.
I thought just on the letter, I thought he asked why he didn't get a letter, but
Yes, and
regardless.
I will send him a letter and set a specific date in accordance with the ordinance, if that's what you would like us to do. I don't have a problem with that.
I'll
We
make
have
a-
not done this before, and I wanted to be sure that we
Well, this is what
vetted
this is what
this
this says. It
information.
says,
Yes,
"The
you are
applicant-"
right, you are right.
So I should have been notified in writing that there was something going on.
You don't have, this is on the agenda. They don't have to vote tonight, John.
But
They,
should-
they,
But the way
we.
this states it is that it should have been sent a letter that it was gonna be discussed tonight. That's the way I'm reading it, unless I'm.
You did call the office and say that you assumed that this was going to be on the agenda,
No,
and
I
it
called
is
the
on
office and I asked Michelle for if you were in, she said you were at a meeting. I said, could I talk to her answer machine first? And I think what I said was, time is of the essence. I hope I'm gonna be on the next meeting. If there's a problem, one way or the other, let me know. And I never heard anything on the phone.
Okay.
That was what I
Fair
said.
enough.
But I guess
Fair enough.
before I make a
But we
motion.
can do that.
Before I make a motion, John, I'm proposing, I'm gonna make a motion, whether it passes or fails due to timing. Are you okay, is that what you would prefer, or would you prefer you get a letter and deal with, that's what we're
I
asking?
can't, you know what? What am I gonna do? Then if I wait, I got.
So would you prefer I make a motion and we see where it goes
I guess
tonight?
yes, yeah, we got it.
Okay,
I'm
then,
pushing the
okay,
water.
for the sake of time, for not only tonight, but also your driveway, I'm gonna make a motion to, approve the appeal of Summer Street owner John Jarzbeck, the driveway, construction appeal. Is there, oh, Susan needs that.
Yeah, is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
I think I already said a lot in the sake of time. I just think, especially Main Street, this is where I'm going with it in my head. I think an average property on Main Street might be 75 feet to 100 feet wide. And in the future, if 10 feet of that now is going to be a beautiful new driveway when they put in their driveways, and that's the majority of the problematic areas from the vehicles driving over it, I think we're bettering the community, we're making it safer, and it's gonna look great. So I'm okay with it. That's where my mentality is on this one, so that's my 2 cents.
Any other discussion?
I think that John has shown that he has a hardship, and I think he's tried to do everything he can to make it the best it can be, and it has failed so far. So I think we should move on this as well.
Okay.
I don't have as much of a hardship, given, that's one of the reasons I wanted to go and take a look at this, where this one is located. I get more concerned about setting a precedent wholesale especially for sidewalks that are gonna be in areas that are gonna be traveled, by a lot more people. I don't expect you get a tremendous amount of foot traffic on this. So that would be my concern, right? I don't really wanna set a precedent. I think that we have to do a little bit more as a group investigation before we say, we want this to be the new standard. But in terms of if there's a hardship on a section of road, that isn't connected to the broader downtown area, doesn't have a lot of foot traffic, it's mostly gonna be local, just, local residents, and there doesn't seem to be any objection. That doesn't bother me all that much, but I really do not wanna set a precedent for the entire town on what we're doing.
And if
But
I,
we're not doing it.
correct, and if I may, just for peace of mind, High Street is a very traveled road. Cumberland Farms and the medical building are functioning just fine. I'm not aware, Susan, are we aware of any problems with the way it's laid out?
I think it's a question for Rick as the Director of Public Works.
Well, my 2 cents is, again, I think if John has a hardship, a true hardship, and he may very well, you wouldn't be setting a precedent.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and that's
That-
what I,
that's
that's
where
what
Jim
I
needs to
needed to
be.
hear. I just don't wanna be setting up, because I'm not sold on, broadly speaking, changing it. But I think in this case, you've got a hardship and you have some timing issues, so.
Right. And this is only pertaining to John for
Yes.
tonight. We're
Correct.
just bringing
Yeah,
in these
correct.
other things,
Correct.
but we're
Yeah.
only concentrating on this and voting on him.
Okay, are you ready for the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
How many
Aye.
ayes? Abstain. Motion passes.
Good luck.
Good luck.
It better hold up.
Good luck, that's right.
We'll tear it up again.
And by the way, we don't want any lines crossed, okay?
No
Take care.
Okay, the next item is refund of excess payments.
I make a motion, we refund $13.73 to Gerald J. McGinley Jr. and Lisa M. McGinley.
Second.
Second by Ben. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
I make a motion, we refund to Laura B. Sienna $27.90.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Status and committee reports. I have one thing I just wanted to point out, and that is, I was approached by the Portland Little League, and April Graves is the president, is here tonight. And they would like for us to consider, the Little League, after due diligence, determining if they want to lease the old Company 2 firehouse that used to be the Cellar Savers.
If they wanna lease
Lease
it?
it.
Okay.
Yes, and use it for meetings and use it for opportunities for fundraisers and other opportunities for the Little League of Portland. Did you want to add anything, April?
No, we were just looking, our vice president, I'm sorry, what?
Could you go up
Can you
so
come up
that
so-
people can hear you?
Tonight
You are now.
This is April Graves, Freestone Ave.
So, I was approached by our Vice President, Mike Hernandez, who was familiar with the building, and thought about the different options that would be available to us. Right now, we're pretty spread out throughout the town. We have our equipment stored at Store Yourself. They've been very good about, they give us free storage there. However, that's been problematic for us because they have certain hours they keep. We've run into problems of not being able to get our equipment when we needed it. We conduct our meetings at the senior center, which then we have to, ensure that we have somebody go get the key. We ran into some trouble just this past month because it was Columbus Day, they were closed. Luckily, there's always a meeting upstairs on Monday nights, so we're able to sneak into the building to have our meeting. And then, the other thing too, like when we do walk-in registrations, we have to come to the library or somewhere else. We're looking for a place to house ourselves. And, actually, the Bay Area, we were looking at, we got the key from Susan, we were able to go look at it. The Bay Area would actually be large enough with netting to be able to do some indoor pitching and whatnot there, to be able to do some winter clinics, stuff like that. Use it during the spring when it's still cold and snow on the ground when we're trying to start our season. And then the upstairs would be used as our conference space, walk-in registration area, any kind of
we hold, coaches clinics, we hold umpire clinics, stuff like that. And then the downstairs we were looking at to store our equipment, so we'd have it all in one spot. Right now, we're kinda spread across. And so, yeah, so we went, we looked at it, we like it. We haven't brought it before our board yet, because we wanted to wait and see if it was something that the town would even approve. And, then we approached Susan again and said we think it's something we'd like to go forward with, as opposed to the building just sitting there and not being used, and buildings that don't be used rot away. So, it seemed like a win-win situation for everybody.
Any questions for April?
Yes, my first question, love the idea, but obviously I have questions. Is Carl still using the garage? Does he have his stuff in there, or no? Or does he need to use the garage?
Some things
There was
stored in
some
there?
equipment,
Yeah.
yes.
Obviously, if he doesn't need the space, then I think it's a great idea, but if he really needs that space,
Let me also say then that we have a lot of buildings that we maintain, and if the town can not have a building to maintain, and we have a volunteer group that has the wherewithal
Yep.
and the willingness to take care of a building, we have other storage places
But-
that we can perhaps find.
Okay.
So I don't wanna say that, can't store his things there, but I think you need, as selectmen, to determine if you need that building, the heat, and the care and upkeep. The furnace needs replacing, the roof needs some work. The Historical Society, as you'll recall, looked at this. They have rejected the idea. It doesn't meet their needs, so they are not interested. So I am very excited that Little League is interested in this. I think they still need to do a little bit more investigation and looking into it. And they have the copy of the agreement that this board previously had approved for the cellar savers. So I think it's a worthwhile proceeding, but before we do, I bring it to you. Just like we brought an appeal to you, because that is your power. Leasing buildings would be something you would have to go to a town meeting for, but I don't make that determination, it comes from this board.
I'm fine with it, as long as Carl doesn't need it, and I think that's something we can vote on, and you can just stipulate, I think Carl can move.
You can
so-
just give us consensus, you don't
Exactly,
have to vote on it
exactly,
tonight, I
yeah.
don't think.
I think it's
Do you
great.
agree? I think it's a great,
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea.
Great use of it.
Great reuse,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So you have consensus to proceed, so why don't we set up a meeting and we can take a look at the contract and some of the other things, and then we'll bring it back to a more formal decision, okay? Excellent. Thank you, April.
Keep up the good work.
Yes, yes,
Thanks for
definitely.
hanging in there all night.
Yes. You picked a heck of a meeting.
Well, I live on Freestone, so I was a part of the sidewalk conversation.
Oh, so you were here for dual purpose.
Next item is public comment.
Shirley Olson, 14 Russell Avenue. In relation to Don's comment about, incorporating the community into the public health in relation to the
Opioid.
that's it.
Yeah, I got it.
You may want to have someone, and Kit, you might be the person to do it, to speak to David Opashinsky. He is I think he's the head of all the school nurses. And I was, a friend and I went to a program over at the Community Health Center in relation to addiction, and he was there, so.
Yeah, and we had been working with him,
Yeah.
when I was on Board of Education, because the Board of Ed was looking at this as a potential policy pending the state squaring away, so he's got some expertise on it.
Yeah, so, and he was an EMT anyway.
Another resource.
Pardon?
That's another resource.
He gave it up. He gave up the EMT.
He gave up the EMT.
Yep. And in relation to the sidewalks, I have a question that can be researched. How many people on the original sidewalk committee, how many people on the current sidewalk committee, and how many people on Complete Streets have walked from the four corners of 17 and 17A to the bridge on both sides? In relation to the asphalt and the driveways. I had an incident on Main Street in which I bounced off the sidewalk. And the problem was the driveway was lower, okay? And the sidewalk went this way, went across the driveway, and I got hooked because the sidewalk went up off the driveway. So I think it would be a safer situation if it were asphalt, because the asphalt and the chip seal, believe me, is much better to walk on.
Thank you.
And Nico took me to the emergency room.
Oh, gee. Wow. Wow, that was.
Yes, but Sergeant Kelly will let my service dog stay with me while I'm there.
He is a wonderful dog.
Just to investigate stolen cars.
Any other public comment tonight? I did, under Board of Selectmen informal discussion, I did want for the record to let the selectmen know as a town update, that our Assistant Town Clerk, Paula Lee, recently was, notified and awarded the Certified Connecticut Town Clerk. So she has passed her examination and met the strict requirements of, being a certified town clerk, and we would like to congratulate Paula on that. I'd also point out, over the last few years, Cheryl Cream, who works in the Collector of Revenue's office, she too passed the examination for a certified Connecticut Municipal Collector. So she is a certified collector of revenue, and that too, we would like to applaud Cheryl for her study and her work. Previously, Gail Petito had passed her test, but she no longer works for us. So I do think it's important to mention these awards and tests that our staff pass, and it means that the staff that you have are trained in the laws as well as in the rules associated with their given professions. So congratulations to Paula and to Cheryl.
Any update on the state budget? You heard anything?
I had a call in the hallway, and it was the executive director of CCM, and he said there was a press conference today that the legislators had met. They've indicated that they have a tentative, I don't know if I can call it an agreement, but they have a tentative understanding of a budget. And I believe, Ben, what they have to do is now take it to their respective caucuses. So it's much more encouraging. They have included, I didn't go into detail with them because I was taking the minutes for the public hearing, but it appears they've included some reforms that we need to have in terms of how towns manage themselves. And they also are taking a look at, and I'm hoping that I heard him right, that we will not be responsible for contribution to the teacher pension fund. That is the line in the sand as far as I'm concerned. And as far as Council of Small Towns is concerned, and Connecticut Conference Municipalities, if we go into the allocation of your local tax dollars toward the teacher pension agreement, then you should have a reason. You should have negotiating ability. You should sit at the table. Or Connecticut needs to take a look at its law and determine that pensions are not a negotiable item, as it is in other states. Now, Connecticut, it is a negotiated item, and we respect that. We respect collective bargaining. But if we are going to have to pay for something, we should be at the table negotiating.
Well said.
Excuse me, may I add a
Absolutely.
point to that?
Yes.
That, at the news conference, or before the news conference, or, the
Yeah.
head of the House and the head of the, on both sides of that thing. And what they're working on is making sure that they have enough members in the Senate and in the House, so if the governor feels it, you can just go in and override the deal.
And I think,
Good.
Shirley, what's important to point out is that it sounds like this is a bipartisan budget. And that is another thing that CCM has called for, and all the organizations, including the individual taxpayers in the state. The days are gone where you take sides. You have to put Connecticut first and make sure that a budget is passed by all sides, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an unaffiliated. That is important.
I heard just a little bit before I left to comment. I agree with you, Shirley. It sounded like what they were working for were enough votes to override an expected veto from the
Well, the
governor.
governor said he was gonna veto it.
Yeah, but it sounds like they have worked together, and now they go back to caucus, and they're gonna have a united front, which will be great for the
It's good.
towns.
It's good.
Yeah.
No, that was the most positive
Mhm.
thing that came out of it. They were gonna
Well, and that we won't have the teacher pension issue.
Any word on the contribution to Portland, like on the education, the 4.3?
I heard nothing on that.
I don't think the specifics
Be
are
careful
out
what
yet,
words you
Ben.
use. When you say nothing on that, you didn't
I
hear
didn't
anything?
hear
or you
any
heard nothing?
information on that then.
Okay, thank you for clarification, because
Specifics are
I just had a heart attack.
And I didn't hear any information on that.
Okay, that's fine. So let's just all hope for the best.
Okay.
That's still,
what I thought I heard when I.
I think I didn't hear the 6 o'clock news because I was here,
But
but
they're planning to send it out to have the numbers run through.
the budget office, maybe
Yeah.
the legislative budget office, yes, that's good.
that is.
Okay.
It's hopeful. Yes, it's critical.
I'll have to send you a bill for the information.
Oh, in general discussion.
It's $4,750 though.
If this is Kathy's
It's a
last,
bargain.
if this is Kathy's last meeting, I
Don't
say
we have
at the
another-
next meeting, we present her with an award for her service.
I don't need an award. Don't we
So,
have another
yeah.
meeting?
Do we?
We typically have one meeting after the election.
No, but November first?
November 1st, yes, we do.
Yeah, I'll be
You're right,
here.
Kathy.
And
We
then-
can do it at that meeting. We can do it at that meeting. That way you don't have to come back again.
We want her to come back often.
I think he's trying to get rid of you, Kathy.
I want her to come back. Thank you, Ben, we will. I don't have anything else on sidewalks tonight, or stormwater, or ethics, or animals.
Good. Do we have to have executive session?
We do.
I make a motion to go into
10:30.
executive session.
I'll
Thank
second
you,
it.
Ben. Seconded by Jim. And it is 10:30, and I will take the minutes from this point on.